spent the last week running from the heat, but the beat's coming alive. Let's get lost tonight. Lord, who's on my right?
Hello, wackos. Welcome to another episode of Without a Country. I am Corinne Fisher. If my hair looks different, I did get my roots touched up. Thank you so much for noticing. Welcome to the show. I'm Corinne Fisher. I don't know if I said that part already, but I'm saying it again. It's good to get some name recognition. Hello, I'm Corinne Fisher. This is Without a Country. If you're new, if you're old, meaning like a new listener and an old listener, but also if you're young or you're old or new to the world or old to the world, whatever, we welcome you. Thanks for being here. As a reminder, make sure you're following us on social media, Without a Country Podcast on Instagram. My personal Instagram, which is the brunt of my posting, is at Philanthropy Gal. I've been doing a lot more political posting, which is good because I said, you know what, I really would like to lose some more followers. And so that's been going well. It's interesting because it gets the most engagement, like as far as like who's looking at your profile, but then it also makes you lose the most amount of followers. So it's really fun, but it's important. It's what I want to be doing. And I started a new series about municipal politics inspired by my love and our discussions here every week about municipal politics. You know, obviously, after I had to concede my campaign, I did want to, you know, do something with everything that I had learned and the passion that had really ignited inside me about municipal politics. Like, I shit you not, like it really did. And, you know, part of the reason is because on the show we had talked so much about the Democratic Party losing sight of what everyday people really need. And I think municipal politics is a beautiful way to immerse yourself in that, because that is your literal job, is to make sure people have access to the services they need, and that the public schools are good. And it's a lot more like you do something and your constituents see an immediate or at least faster result than in federal politics. So it's just really been cool. And again, it's one of those things where I think a lot less people are interested in them. You know, you can't fight as much over them because municipal politics, basically, you'd have to fight with people who live in your same community, you know. And I guess people like to fight about, you know, politics or like things that they can discuss on a larger basis. But I do really encourage you, and I think a lot of you have been really receptive to my plea with you to be more interested in municipal politics based on the articles that you've sent me. And so, you know, every week I developed this thing called political ASMR. If you know me, especially on Guys We Fucked, or like me posting on social media, like I legitimately love ASMR. It's like not a joke. But I thought it would be funny to use ASMR to deliver municipal politics news because, number one, it's actually a smart tactic because it does help regulate your nervous system, and what, you know, dysregulates your nervous system more than reading the news. And then it's just it's like a newer way to intake information. There's like that novelty aspect to it. So just trying something new. It's something I wanted to do for a little while now, and I finally made it happen this past weekend. So you can send me municipal articles for this show, or also send them my way, and maybe I can use one of them for my ASMR show, which I'm calling Local Whispers, you know, because as we've talked about in this show, I do feel like municipal politics a lot of times have a soap opera esque tone to the articles. So I thought it should sound like the name of a soap opera as well. And that's where that came from. And then, you know, I talked about the rapture, just doing a little bit more work like that on social media. You know, I think after running for mayor, I was like, all right, well, how do we now meld my love of politics with my love of entertaining? And I think the most important thing is getting correct information to people and also getting them interested so that they give a shit, so that they show up to the polls. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do, just find different ways to get people interested in things that I think would truly benefit them to be interested in. Like, personally, it will benefit you to like know a little bit about what's going on with your mayor, or your city council. And again, it's, for at a time when I think a lot of us feel like we have such little control over the outcome of our country. Municipal politics is something really good to sink your teeth into, because it's much easier to stop a bad mayor than it is a bad president. And so we want to, get these people and stop them before they get to a level where it's going to be really out of our control to stop the power that they have. I think that's also a good way to look at it. So yeah, that's been going on. What else did I want to say about that? And then obviously I have all my advisors who worked on my campaign, and they've been presenting some options of up and coming politicians to maybe interview for this show, or as a complimentary series. So those are things I'm looking into as well, to just like get some different, gubernatorial candidates and mayoral candidates and people like that, just on our radar. And even if they're not running for an election that you can participate in, I think it will still give you a sense of, kind of what's going on in politics, the kinds of things that people are promising thematically, because there has definitely been a turn. I mean, we saw it in my campaign because, it was clear it's what the Democratic Party needed to be promising people, and needed to deliver on. Certainly, but the success of Zoran Mamdani in the primaries also, I think, is really affecting the way people run their campaigns, and so that's really something interesting to track. So that's my spiel on that. But again, make sure you're subscribed to the Without a Country YouTube and following me on social media at Philanthropy Gal, and the podcast is Without a Country Podcast. Mike's at Them Harrington. Shout out to Mike Harrington in the booth. Also on Monday, I hadn't talked about the fact that I had tickets previously, but I did go to the Dawson's Creek class reunion. For those of you who don't know, James Vanderbeek, he has stage 3 colon cancer. And it's very serious, and he's been battling that for a while. And so Michelle Williams put together this really cool benefit for F Cancer, where the entire core cast of Dawson's Creek got together for a reunion for the first time since the show went off the air, and they did a staged reading of the pilot episode of Dawson's Creek. And I wanted to go very badly to this, and it was only it's at the Richard Rogers Theater, which means there's it was 1,200, 1,400, not a lot of tickets, one night only available. And when I heard that this was happening, I was like, number one, how much is this going to cost me? Because I got to be, more importantly than me have to be there, my mother had to be there. My mom, if anyone saw my one-woman show years ago, Corinne Fisher, I Stalk You, that's a deep cut. But if you're a real Corinne head, you know about that show. And I talk about my family's obsession with celebrity in that, which speaks a lot about why I am the way I am. But specifically, and I think I talked about this perhaps in the Guys We Fucked book too, but my mom's a huge Dawson's Creek fan, in short, huge. I literally was an extra on the show years ago because my mom wanted to hang out on set, and I had she informed me on the way down to North Carolina that I was going to be working during my vacation because she had signed me up to be an extra. Well, I mean, I was very pissed off at the time, but it was a hilarious, it is hilarious in retrospect. And also on the set of Dawson's Creek, I met this really hot rich guy who I dated a little bit, who lived in Manhattan, and was my first glimpse at what it was like to be a rich person. Really crazy. His dad had early BarnesandNoble.com money. Anyway, a lot of backstory here, but yeah, I just knew my mom had to be there. She if anyone in my life is deserved to be at the Dawson's Creek reunion. It was my mom, and her birthday is coming up, and also her retirement is coming up in just a few days. Happy retirement, Mom. And so I was like, I have to. And so I had my boyfriend, I had her. We all had our laptops out. The moment the tickets got on sale, in unison, I had given everyone explicit directions. We had, financial caps because they didn't reveal how much the tickets were going to cost in advance. And it was actually exactly the number I thought it was going to be. There was different tier tickets, but it was interesting. They spread them out to kind of be inclusive. So there was like $250 tickets near people who had $2,000 tickets. And the seats were just as good. So I thought that was pretty cool of them, and an inclusive benefit, because so often benefits, kind of shut out the very people that they're meant to help, which is, a whole other discussion that we can have on this show. Anyway, all that's to say, it did that digital waiting in line thing that Ticketmaster does now. And I got through the line first, and I was able to nab sick ticket. We're talking row E, okay? Row E orchestra tickets. I couldn't have been happier. I was able to get two, because I was like, if I can only get one, I'm just going to send my mom. But I was able to get two, so I was able to accompany her. And, I really wanted to go as well. But it was just magical. The whole night was, I think it healed something deeply in me, because I loved Dawson's Creek the first time, but the second rewatching I did only a couple of years ago, I believe I watched it right after my dad died, but I could have started watching it while my dad was dying. But anyway, it was I guess the nostalgia, brought me back to a time when my dad was alive. There was something in it. I have to psychologically dive into this a little bit more, but it made Dawson's Creek even more meaningful to me. So it was really special to be there, and the cast just seemed to genuinely like each other. And I'm going over this because some of you asked, and we've already pre-recorded Guys We Fucked for the the weeks that I'll be out. So I wanted to do it on this show. So if you're wondering why I'm talking about Dawson's Creek reunion, that is why people requested this, because it was such a hot ticket, especially for millennials. But I didn't use any entertainment business tricks. I got in just the way anyone would have been able to get in, through pure grit and determination on Ticketmaster.com. And then, obviously, James Vanderbeek, if you were following, as I do on social media, I follow him. And a couple days before the event, he said, yo, guys, I am really sick with some stomach viruses and I can't come. As anyone who is familiar with what cancer does to the body, on top of having the cancer, a lot of times you get all these other kind of illnesses, your immune system's so low, it's whatever. And I was kind of very disgusted by people's comments when he posted that. Obviously, the guy has cancer. This is why we're doing the benefit to begin with. If he says that he's sick, he's not saying it because he doesn't feel like showing up. And I don't know. There was just I had been following his. There was some previously. I was kind of very worried about how he was doing, because things just didn't seem like they were going that well. And he just doesn't seem like the type of person to cancel. So I was disgusted with the comments. And I was disgusted with headlines that Deadline and stuff ran about him dropping out. I was going around like a crazy person commenting on social media. He didn't drop out. He has fucking cancer and he got sick. That's not dropping out. That's not how I'd write the headline. It's very clickbaity and shitty. But Lin-Manuel Miranda replaced him, which I know sounds weird, but it's Michelle Williams is married to Lin-Manuel Miranda's one of his best friends, who is a producer of not In the Heights, of Hamilton, and so it all makes sense if you kind of know the inside of it. Yeah, and Lynn did a great job. He actually is a surprisingly really good fit for Dawson when I saw it in front of me. There was lots of great Katie Holmes and Josh Jackson moments, and then James Vanderbeek sent some video messages. And the last time I had seen how he looked on social media was about 2 months ago. He posted video, and he looked, you could tell that something was wrong, but he still looked like himself. And I don't know what's gone on in the past 2 months, but he's definitely taken a turn from the worst, and he looks extremely, extremely pale. It reminded me of my dad. in hospice. And then when that came on, I was just like, between that and the relationship I had with Dawson's Creek from my dad dying, I was like, oh my God. I was like, I can't. I was like, I got to keep it together in here. But it was, and the worst part was that, his family, James Van Der Beek's, even though he didn't come, his wife and his 6 children showed up, and they're all very young kids. And when James's video came on, the audience gasped audibly, and like, yes, it was jarring to see him, but it just annoys me that adults can't fucking keep it together. Like, we know his kids are there. Like, I know seemingly like sometimes things are a knee-jerk reaction, but like, I had the reaction of, oh my God, he looks like he's dying, but somehow I managed to not make a noise. And so this is just like a PSA of like, can you fucking keep it together? Like, can we actually like pretend that we're adults? Like, can you imagine his 6 children are there and an entire audience of, 1,200-1,400 people is gasping at the sight of their frail father? Like, just that kind of shit annoys me all the time. It's the same way, like, we're trained as children. It's like, not gasp when you see someone who is like severely disabled out in the world. Like, it is possible. It just annoyed me so much, and I was like, I hope this, like, his kids seem to be, I don't know what they're, they're a very natural family. I don't know what they're doing, but it's working because they were all so composed. 2 of his daughters like sang part of the theme song to Dawson's Creek. It was a real lovely night. And James, even though he seems like he is very ill, his videos were heartwarming and interesting, and he has great comedic timing. Because he's not at all like his character on Dawson's Creek. I think he's changed a lot from who he perhaps was as a young man for the better. So that's my summary of it. It was really special though, and I don't know that anything like that will ever happen again. But it was great, and I highly encourage, if you love the show, go back and watch it again, and I think it'll bring you some joy. And sometimes nostalgia can be super helpful in high stress times. It was definitely a device I used for healing a lot, and I found it to be quite beneficial. All right, so that's that, and fucking if 45 and up. Get your colon checked. There's you can get a colonoscopy, but there's also a blood test that Shield does that James Van Der Beek was advocating for. But there is a rise in colon cancer, I think specifically for young men as well, the same as breast cancer for women. Young women is on the rise. But if you are 45 or up, go get your colon checked for cancer. Super important. Some people shy away from it because a colonoscopy is very invasive, but please, it could absolutely save your life. And it is a cancer that is extremely treatable if they catch it early on. So please, 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 same as your mammogram. I just got my mammogram. My OBGYN has me doing, recommended 35 and up. If your provider recommends 40 and up, ask them if they'll write you a referral, something if you need it for your health insurance. I would really recommend 35 and up for breast cancer screenings for women. So that's my PSA. All that. And let's get cooking with this show. A ton to talk about. My fingers are going to get calloused for, when it's the 3rd Trump administration, which I do fully see coming to fruition. But sometimes when Joe Biden was president, I would be grasping at straws to get content for this show. Not when Trump's at the helm. So the enemy of the state this week, let's get into that, is a guy I already hated for comments he had made and things about his family. I fucking hate this whole family, but Errol Musk, Elon Musk's dad, is this week's enemy of the state.
Enemy of the state.
And it's for Mike's favorite topic, which is child molestation. Not that he likes it. He's a big advocate against it. That's why Mike likes to talk about it. But I did choose this just for you. I knew that you would give me a tongue lashing had I not brought this up. I know you hate when I gloss over pedophilia and molestation. So
you wish I'd give you a tongue lashing.
Ew! No, I've been molested on my own show, Michael. This is from Rolling Stone. Elon Musk's estranged father accused of child sex abuse. The alleged incidents involve 5 of Errol Musk's children and stepchildren. He has not been charged with or convicted of any crimes. This is by John Blystein. Elon Musk's estranged father, Errol Musk, is facing several allegations of child sex abuse involving 5 of his children and stepchildren, according to a new New York Times investigation. The allegations against Errol, 79, were detailed in police reports, court records, personal letters, and interviews with family members and social workers. The alleged incidents occurred in South Africa, where Errol lives, and California. Errol, who has not been charged with or convicted of any crimes, denied the allegations against him. He told The Times that the reports are false and nonsense to the extreme. He suggested the family members were putting the children up to say false things to get money from Elon. So going with the same template as always, trying to ruin me, trying to get my money, yada, yada, yada. Several allegations in the story center around a former stepdaughter from Errol's marriage to Heidi Mary Bezuidenhout, his third wife. Again, a guy with a lot of wives, so I already knew this guy was a problem. You can marry twice. After that, just have a girlfriend. The earliest alleged incident occurred in 1993 when the stepdaughter from Bezuidenhout's first marriage was 4 years old. Errol allegedly placed her on a row of trash cans at the family's home in Pretoria, South Africa, and touched her. Fun. The stepdaughter told her aunt about the alleged incident, and the aunt and other relatives reported it to the authorities. An investigation was opened, but the charges were withdrawn as part of a divorce settlement with Errol. Bezuidenhout and Errol would marry and divorce twice. So they're both a problem. Errol claimed that following this divorce, a judge granted him custody of his daughter with Bezuidenhout, and 2 judges rejected the stepdaughter's abuse allegations, which is crazy. But the Times could not find court records or judges capable of verifying Errol's claim. Around 1999, Errol and Bezuidenhout remarried. In 2002, they traveled to California to visit Elon, Errol's oldest child from his first marriage to May Haldeman, who bought them a $2 million house in Malibu, which in Malibu honestly sounds kind of like an inexpensive house. But I guess in that time period, 2002-ish, that would have been a lot more house than it is today. During their stay, according to family members and personal notes, the stepdaughter, by then 14, walked in on Errol in her room, allegedly sniffing her dirty underwear. Okay. The police were called and a complaint was filed with Child Protective Services in Los Angeles. A spokesperson for the agency declined to comment to the Times, and the LAPD denied a records request. A restraining order was issued against Errol, according to 3 people. Also, if you want to sniff a child's underwear, why would you do it in their room? Just go in as fast as you can, take the underwear, and then do it on your own time. Lock yourself in the bathroom or something. This is my problem with men's disgusting crimes. They're also extremely careless. Errol denied the allegation, saying he had been cleaning up his stepdaughter's room. I mean, red flag there. Are you kidding me? What are we talking about? A man, especially of this era, I don't think a man of this era has ever cleaned anyone's room, including his own. Hilarious.
I don't think I've ever once cleaned my daughter's room.
Yeah, well, okay.
And she's my daughter, not a 14-year-old stepdaughter in my house.
No, I know. I mean, you just outed yourself. But I mean, that was the biggest lie. I'm like, when do dads be cleaning rooms? It just doesn't, unless you're a single dad who lives alone or something. It just doesn't. That's not a thing. I mean, I was gonna say, I can count on my fingers and toes the amount of times in the 17 years that I lived in my house growing up with my dad that he hadn't even been in my room. But that's not necessarily true because there was a storage closet in my room for some of his collectibles. So he was, I think, up there more than he would have been. But if not, two times maybe. Yeah. Let's see. Errol denied the allegation. Wait, Okay. The police were called and a complaint was filed with Child Protective Services. In Los Angeles, a spokesperson for the agency declined to comment to the Times, and the LAPD denied a records request. A restraining order was issued against Errol, according to 3 people. Errol denied the allegation, saying he had been cleaning up his stepdaughter's room after returning from a trip and finding the house in, quote, a terrible state. I mean, stop it. Afterward, Elon reportedly moved his father from the Malibu house to a boat in Los Angeles. That's how you know someone in the family is a ne'er-do-well, if you're like, okay, they can live on the boat. And then back to South Africa. But Errol claimed he left the United States on his own, though he was soon reliant on Elon and his brother Kimball for financial support. That's another reason I hated that family, because they named someone Kimball. While Elon reportedly explored keeping Errol's children and stepchildren with Bezuidenhout in California and even becoming their legal guardian, the family chose to return to South Africa in 2003. Bezuidenhout and Errol divorced again in 2005. That didn't last long, though in 2009, they reconnected. Around that time, the stepdaughter, now 21, claimed that Errol kissed her and stuck his tongue into her mouth. She detailed the incident in an application for an interim protection order in South Africa, in which she wrote of Errol, "I don't want him to be allowed to come close to me." The application was granted. Errol denied the allegation and claimed that his stepdaughter inappropriately kissed him while he was sleeping. Okay. He's really trying to make this seem like this is an episode of Baby Reindeer, because other than that, I don't even know where you would get such a story. As an adult, the stepdaughter struggled with drug abuse and homelessness. She told the Times that she tied her drug use to the trauma she experienced growing up. While Elon provided some support to the stepdaughter from afar, when she was 29, the stepdaughter reached out to Errol for help as well. The two became intimate and had at least one child together. I just heard Mike from the booth.
Yo.
It's a very, and now we're going full Woody Allen. The stepdaughter has said they had one child, while Errol had suggested in other interviews that they may have had more. He told the Times it was none of your business, quote, how many they'd had. All right. In 2022, Errol allegedly groped their 5-year-old son, according to family members. Bezuidenhout texted a relative the following year. He said, "Dad gropes his behind. He screamed, 'No, Dad.'" Like the kid screamed, "No, Dad." A police investigation was opened, but prosecutors ultimately dropped the case due to insufficient evidence. Errol said of the allegation, "There was no evidence because this is nonsense." Or maybe because your victim was fucking 5. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, what was that documentary about the guy who, like, molested an entire family? And got the dad to jerk him off?
In plain sight? Is
That's what this sounds like.
Yeah.
This has in plain sight vibes, where it's like, this family should have cut ties with this guy when the stepdaughter was 4.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Or there's other words too. It's like caught in plain, something like that. Oh, sorry, abducted in plain sight, I believe. Yeah, manipulative, abducted in plain sight is what you're referencing, but yes.
Yeah, but tell me this is not that.
Yeah, no, I mean, if he starts doing it to the adults, then definitely, but yeah, no, I mean, it's like, why is this guy around?
He kept working his way into the stepdaughter's life through the stepmom, who he married twice.
Oh, yeah, I'm not even thinking of that part, yeah, because it's not, that's consensual sex. The whole thing is so fucking disgusting. Oh, my God. All right. The other allegations of abuse against Errol were mentioned in the application for the interim protection order filed by the stepdaughter. She claimed that Errol also abused one of his stepsons, who later died in a car accident, as well as his 2 daughters with Bezuidenhout. This name
What kind of car was he driving?
You mean like a Tesla?
If it was a Tesla, that's even more suspicious.
Oh, boy. While the stepdaughter... What year was okay? I'm like, was the Tesla even invented? It depends what year it was. They don't say the year of the car accident. While the stepdaughter did not provide details, Bezuidenhout did reference abuse allegations from one of her 2 daughters with Errol in a letter she sent to Elon around 2007. A letter, like not an email. Wow, old school. Another relative mentioned the same allegations contained in the protective order in a note sent to Elon in 2010. Errol called the accusation that he abused his stepson nonsense, seems like his favorite word for all this, and the claims involving his daughters absurd. Elon declined to comment to the Times for the story, and a representative did not immediately return additional requests for comment. Over the years, Elon has been frank, if not exactly full of details, when discussing his problems with his estranged father. In a 2017 Rolling Stone story, he called Errol such a terrible human being, but did not provide specifics. And listen, if your dad is a fucking child molester, that is not your fault. But if you know about molestations that are going on, and you are not alerting the authorities, and even furthermore, helping to provide money for him to live or hush money to other family members, then you are absolutely complicit. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. My dad will have, especially, with Elon's relationship to the right, in America, and the right's, hatred of pedophiles.
Yeah, right.
What?
The right hates pedophiles?
Well, is obsessed with them.
I mean,
Mike,
about who's
what?
holding water for this Epstein file thing.
I understand, Mike, but I'm saying, this was, one of the main topics that the right loves to bring up is pedophilia. Everyone's a pedophile. We've talked about it on the show for years. It's also just funny to me. I feel like there's a different Mike in the booth than we had in the booth, even 6 months ago.
Well, I mean, it's just the political landscape is shifting to the point where, the populist party is now calling for a surveillance state. It's like that's a natural shift in one's personal opinion.
Oh yeah. Speaking of that, pop that on the docket. We talked about it, and then I didn't. There was so much going on that I didn't even place it. But basically, probably going to be putting us under the same surveillance that Israel is using, that we talked about with that Ronan Farrell documentary. All right. So my dad will have a carefully thought out plan of evil, he said. He will plan evil. You have no idea about how bad. Almost every crime you can possibly think of, he has done. Almost every evil thing you could possibly think of, he has done. That's quite a quote. Maybe that should go on his tombstone. In Walter Isaacson's 2023 authorized biography, Elon said his father had been uncomfortably attentive to his stepsister. He added that he was angry with Errol for his inappropriate behavior. I mean, it's just hard to sympathize with the richest man in the world. If your dad is this bad, why don't you pay him off to go away for fucking ever? If you can't get him in jail. Really crazy behavior. But that is our enemy of the state this week. Good old Errol Musk. And if you want to join our Patreon, it's patreon.com/withoutacountry. You can have a Patreon membership for as little as $6 a month. All hail to our wonderful dictator, Christopher Fungi. Thank you so much for being an amazing dictator. Shout out to my capitalist pigs. Shout out to my cuties. Quick little thing from the Wacko Mailbag this week. I know you guys have been sending me lots of great emails, and they're very interesting. A lot of them are just more evergreen and not super pressing, and these past several weeks of news have just been absolutely stacked. So I see them, just not a huge place for them right now, but I wanted to say that Wacko Melissa did write in regarding Jeffrey Epstein and the Mossad. And it was specifically about, because I was asking for, where's the proof? Give us some backup, give us some sources to prove that this is true. And she wrote in and said, One Nation Under Blackmail, volumes 1 and 2, written by Whitney Webb, are worth the read. And she's got mountains of reputable sources, and citations to prove that this Epstein Mossad connection that Mike is hell-bent on. I have not read One Nation Under Blackmail, neither volume 1 nor 2. So I cannot put my personal stamp of approval on it, but I wanted to tell you that that's what Melissa recommends if you are interested in diving into that more. Should I get that for you for Christmas, Mike? When's the last time you read a book?
Well,
and I'm not even trolling you because I read one book a year. It's not good.
It's been a while. I've been doing audiobooks, but my Alex claims those don't count.
You know what? I feel like it's not working the same muscles as reading, but certainly if you're comparing it to like doom scrolling on Instagram, a way better choice. So I think it's, you're getting the information in there. I don't know. I think it's not bad. I agree it's not the same, but I think it's a solid choice. All right. And then just, of course, because we have one every week, sometimes multiple, our shooting of the week this week is the ICE detention facility in Texas. This story comes to us from BBC. Anti-ICE message on ammunition at Dallas shooting that killed immigration detainee. So a detainee has died, and 2 others are critically injured after a rooftop sniper, been a lot of those lately, opened fire at an immigration and customs enforcement center in Dallas, Texas, officials say. The gunman fired indiscriminately at the ICE facility and at a nearby unmarked van, law enforcement officials say, before dying from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. No law enforcement were injured. FBI Director Kash Patel posted a photo on X of unused ammunition recovered from the scene. One casing has the phrase anti-ICE on it. It is the latest in a string of attacks on ICE facilities in recent months as the agency ramps up efforts to deliver on U.S. President Donald Trump's pledge for mass deportations. While the investigation is ongoing, an initial review of the evidence shows an ideological motive behind this attack, Patel wrote on X. These despicable, politically motivated attacks against law enforcement are not a one-off. Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons identified the shooter as 29-year-old Joshua Jan, the BBC's U.S. partner CBS News reported. He died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound, authorities said. The Department of Homeland Security said 3 detainees were shot, 1 has died, and 2 are critically injured. The department had initially said 2 people had died in addition to the shooter, only to revise the conditions again hours later. 1 detainee in a critical condition is a Mexican national, the Mexican Foreign Ministry said. Dallas police said officers responded to an assist officer call at the facility around 6:40 local time. FBI Special Agent Joe Rothrock told a news conference that rounds found near the gunman contained messages that are anti-ICE in nature. This is just the most recent example of this type of attack, he said. He said the FBI was investigating it as an act of targeted violence. Dallas police said a preliminary investigation determined the suspect had opened fire from an adjacent building. The shooter fired indiscriminately at the ICE building, including at a van in the Sally Port where the victims were shot. The Reuters news agency reported that the building targeted is an ICE field office used for short-term processing of recently arrested detainees and is not used as a detention facility. Edward Cardona, a Dallas resident from Venezuela, told local media he was entering the building for an appointment when he heard gunfire. I was afraid for my family because my family was outside. I felt terrible because I thought something could happen to them. Thank God, no, he said. Acting director of the Dallas ICE office, Joshua Johnson, told a news conference it was the second time he has had to stand in front of the media and talk about a gunman at one of his facilities. The takeaway from all of this is that the rhetoric has to stop, he said. What's the rhetoric? What rhetoric has to stop? Texas Senator Ted Cruz also spoke at the news conference condemning politically motivated violence. Your political opponents are not Nazis, he said, urging people not to demonize each other for partisan reasons. The divisive rhetoric, tragically, has real consequences. They are really muddying this. This is a little bit less, is it political, or is this, shooting people who they fucking despise because of what they're doing to fellow countrymen? While the shooter's motives remain unclear, the attack comes amid growing concerns in the U.S. about political violence in the wake of the killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk this month. U.S. President Donald Trump, in a lengthy post on social media on Friday evening, said ICE officers are facing an unprecedented increase in threats and accused radical left Democrats of constantly demonizing law enforcement. Trump noted on Monday that he signed an executive order designating Antifa a terrorist organization, which, as I talked about online, you can't. There's so many problems with this. Number one, a lot of people were commenting that Antifa is a movement, not an actual organization. Secondly, I did research, and first of all, it's not the president who designates terrorist groups to begin with. And then secondly, a domestic organization cannot just be designated as a terrorist organization. That is reserved for international organizations, organizations that exist outside of the United States. For a domestic group to be actually, under the laws as we have it now in the Constitution, designated a terrorist group, there is a lengthy process that they have to go through to do that. It is damn near impossible, just so everyone's clear on that. So everyone's just making up rules as they go. And listen, I'm not putting it past anyone to not propose changes to the Constitution. I'm sure that's going to be happening. But again, people are just saying things now. I guess it's like, it's like when you're playing Candyland with a 4-year-old and they make up the rules and you just kind of let them win the game because it's not worth having the fight. So I guess they're just like, oh, okay, we'll let little Donald write, that Antifa is a terrorist organization on a Post-it note if it makes him feel good this week and not have a tantrum. And he added that he would sign another this week to dismantle these domestic terrorism networks. No information has been released by officials to suggest Antifa, a loosely organized leftist movement that opposes far-right racist and fascist groups, has any connection to the shooting. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said in a statement, this shooting must serve as a wake-up call to the far left that their rhetoric about ICE has consequences. Democratic lawmakers also condemned the shooting, including Senator Corey, trying real hard to improve my career, Booker, who called it an unacceptable act of violence. Oh, that was meaningful. Thanks for adding that to the conversation. While we don't know...
And you said all that in under 24 hours. God bless you, man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, look at... Oh, I get it. Stand in stores now. While we don't know all of the details yet, I'm getting everyone a copy of Stand in my family for Christmas. That would actually be so funny. While we don't know all of the details yet, what we can and all should agree on is that the vilification of any group of people endangers them. It makes them targets, and it must stop, he said on X, which is this is a wild... So that's Cory Booker's... quote continued, which it's just like a weird thing. I agree with him in theory, but this is when you're shooting a group of people who are literally in the process of endangering others. I don't know that that's the best response. Kind of a pussy response. Republican governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, a.k.a. Wheels, said on X the shooting would not slow our arrest, detention, and deportation of illegal immigrants. The ICE field office in Dallas has been targeted by a series of protests this summer. A man was arrested in August after he entered the facility, claiming to have a bomb in his backpack, according to the DHS. The 36-year-old citizen, Bratton Dean Wilkinson, had shown the building's security staff a device on his wrist that he described as a bomb detonator, the DHS said. Last month, shots were fired at ICE offices in San Antonio, Texas. No injuries were reported in that incident, which ICE blamed on, quote, political rhetoric. Another shooting occurred on the 4th of July public holiday at an ICE facility in Alvarado, Texas, after a protest escalated into a face-off with police. An officer was shot in the neck and survived. 11 people have been charged over that attack. Fun times, guys. All right, let's go into our main story now, and then we have a lot of other things to go over, obviously. But I think didn't I have a could be worse from somewhere? Oh yeah, let me actually do this could be worse. This was one of the emails that I got to that I thought I wanted to add into today's docket from a wacko. This is from Wacko Brandon. This is our Could Be Worse, and it's from the Associated Press. And it says Equatorial Guinea enforces year-long internet outage for island that protested construction company. Very interesting article. Thanks for sending this, Brandon. I did not see this. This is a very interesting, could be worse. I like it because it's interesting. I hate it because it's terrible what happens. So this is out of Biopi Adetayo, and this is out of Lagos, Nigeria. When residents of Equatorial Guinea's Annobon Island wrote to the government in Malabo in July last year complaining about the dynamite explosions by a Moroccan construction company, valid, they didn't expect the swift end to their internet access. Dozens of the signatories and residents were imprisoned for nearly a year while internet access to the small island has been cut off since, according to several residents and rights groups. Local residents interviewed by the Associated Press left the island in the past months, citing fear for their lives and the difficulty of life without internet. Banking services have shut down. Hospital services for emergencies have been brought to a halt, and residents say they rack up phone bills they can't afford because cell phone calls are the only way to communicate. When governments shut down the internet, they often instruct telecom providers to cut connections to designated locations or access to designated websites, although it's unclear exactly how the shutdown works in Annobon. The internet shutdown remains in effect, residents confirmed alongside activists, at a moment when the Trump administration has considered loosening corruption sanctions on the country's vice president. Read that again. At a moment when the Trump administration has considered loosening corruption sanctions on the country's vice president. And if you click on that and you want to take a gander on it, it says U.S. set to ease travel restrictions on African leader accused of corruption. This is so crazy. And this guy's name is Teodoro Teddy Nuima Obiang. And this was following recommendations that it is in the U.S. national interest to blunt growing Chinese influence in the West African country and boost American oil and gas business interests there. So in other words, it's going to benefit us somehow financially, so we don't give a fuck about how you treat your people, including basically, keeping them, prisoners, or imprisoning them for speaking out, or keeping them prisoners on their own island without any access to the outside world. Absolutely disgusting. The Moroccan company Somagek, which activists allege is linked to the president, confirmed the outage but denied having a hand in it. The Associated Press could not confirm a link. The current situation is extremely serious and worrying, one of the signatories who spent 11 months in prison said, speaking anonymously for fear of being targeted by the government. Repression ramps up. In addition to the internet shutdown, phone calls are heavily monitored and speaking freely can pose a risk, said Makis Menaholia Toxijad, a resident who recently began living in exile. It is only the latest of repressive measures that the country has deployed to crush criticisms, including mass surveillance, according to a 2024 Amnesty International report. Equatorial Guinea, a former Spanish colony, is run by Africa's longest-serving president, Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mabasco, who, at 83, has served as president for more than half of his life. I'm sure Donald Trump is getting some ideas from him. His son serves as the vice president. That should be illegal. I mean, I'm like, John Adams is they served as president at different periods. I don't think they were in the administration at the same time, were they?
No. There was a gap.
Right. Okay. Because I just wanted to make sure before I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah, I think Adams was second. I know Jefferson was third. Mm-hmm. Quincy Adams was either fourth or fifth.
Yeah, and it's basically if dad is the president and son is the vice president, it's like, okay, well, this is just a monarchy now. His son serves as the vice president and is accused of spending state funds on a lavish lifestyle. He was convicted of money laundering and embezzlement in France and sanctioned by the UK. On Friday, the UN's top court declined Equatorial Guinea's request for France to return a Paris-based mansion confiscated as part of a corruption probe, ruling that the African nation has not shown it has a plausible right to the return of the building. Despite the country's oil and gas wealth, at least 57% of its nearly 2 million people live in poverty, according to the World Bank. Officials, their families, and their inner circle, meanwhile, live a life of luxury. The Equatorial Guinea government did not respond to the Associated Press's inquiry about the island, its condition, and internet access. Located in the Atlantic Ocean, about 315 miles from Equatorial Guinea's coast, Annobon is one of the country's poorest islands and one often at conflict with the central government. With a population of around 5,000 people, the island has been seeking independence from the country for years as it accuses the government of disregarding its residents. The internet shutdown is the latest in a long history of Malabo's repressive responses to the island's political and economic demands, activists say, citing regular arrests and the absence of adequate social amenities like schools and hospitals. Their marginalization is not only from a political perspective, but from a cultural, societal, and economic perspective, said Merce Monhe Kano, Secretary General of the Unrepresented Peoples and Nations Organization Global Advocacy Group. A new airport that opened in Annobon in 2013, which was built by Somagek, promised to connect the island to the rest of the country, but not much has improved, locals and activists say. The internet shutdown has instead worsened living conditions there, collapsing key infrastructure, including healthcare and banking services. In 2007, Equatorial Guinea entered into a business deal with Somagek, a Moroccan construction company that develops ports and electricity transmission systems across West and Central Africa. Annobon's geological formation and volcanic past make the island rich in rocks and expands Malabo's influence in the Gulf of Guinea, which is abundantly rich in oil. Somagek has also built a port and, according to activists, explored mineral extraction in Annobon since it began operations on the island. Residents and activists said the company's dynamite explosions in open quarries and construction activities have been polluting their farmlands and water supply. The company's work on the island continues. Residents hope to pressure authorities to improve the situation with their complaint in July last year. Instead, Obiang then deployed a repressive tactic now common in Africa to cut off access to internet to clamp down on protests and criticisms. I mean, stuff like that is so fucking wild that you think like this is something that like the UN should figure out how to, this is an issue where other countries have to step in. That's really crazy. This was different from past cases when Malabo restricted the internet during an election.
We can't get the UN to agree that food is a human right. Do you really think we're going to get them to agree that Wi-Fi is a human right?
That's your favorite fun fact. And as Michael pointed out, it was not the entire UN. It was merely the US and Israel who voted that food was, in fact, not a human right. I did fact check that after you told me that, and you are correct.
But I mean, come on, that's the UN.
And it's disgusting. But again, I mean, and this last, we're talking about, corruption in elections. Again, this last sentence just said this was different from past cases when Malabo restricted the internet during an election. Wow. And this is, this is someone the U.S. is like, oh, no, we're friends with this guy. Fuck this guy. This is the first time the government cut off the internet because a community has a complaint, said Tutu Alicante, an Annobon-born activist. Tutu's one of my favorite names, not even joking. It's such a good name, who runs the EG Justice Human Rights Organization. The power of the internet to enable people to challenge their leaders threatens authorities, according to Felicia Antonio of Access Now, an internet rights advocacy group. Of course, you want to keep people stupid. They want to look up their rights. And they also want to, like, it's twofold, because the internet helps you have access to information, which is why it's so important that no matter, what your economic background is, that you have access to the internet. And then additionally, access to social media lets you tell the rest of the world about it and lets you share that information quickly and widely. So the first thing they do during a protest is go after the internet, Antonio said. Somagek CEO Roger Sahyun denied having a hand in the shutdown and said the company itself has been forced to rely on a private satellite. He defended the dynamite blasting as critical for its construction projects, saying all necessary assessments had been done. After having undertaken geotechnical and environmental impact studies, the current site where the quarry was opened was confirmed as the best place to meet all the criteria, Sahun said in an email. The residents, meanwhile, continue to suffer the internet shutdown, unable to use even the private satellite deployed by the company. Annabon is very remote and far from the capital and the rest of the continent, said Alicante, the activist from the island. So you're leaving people there without access to the rest of the continent and incommunicado. Crazy article. Thank you so much for sending that, Brandon. Really, really good. Could be worse. And man, could it be? But we're heading in that direction. Don't you worry. Now let's get into our main story before we get into all of our girl stories. Obviously, I put two things this week just because I don't want this to be the Charlie Kirk show now. I guess it could never be since I'm a Jew, but
what are you talking about?
What?
The Charlie Kirk show
is
is
now
currently
hosted
by Jews.
I know. By a Jew. By Jews who are multiple Jews.
Well, I know Ben Shapiro is Matt Walsh not?
Matt Walsh, he reads extremely Gentile to me. What about Matt Walsh or the last name? I mean, you could check it, but I'd be surprised if he's Jewish. He reads very Gentile. All right, let's get into the main story. So we're going to go over what went down at Charlie Kirk's memorial, and additionally, what we think, how MAGA is going to use this, which I think is very important. That's the number one main story. But because I don't want this to turn into, Charlie Kirk news all the time, I also have a second main story about Trump's thoughts on climate change. It is Climate Week, so I thought it was very important to take some time to talk about climate change, especially when our president, the President of the United States of America, said this week that climate change is, quote, the greatest con job. That's a direct quote. Again, something he said at the UN. So the UN very hot this week. So first it was breaking as I left for my house to do the studio that there has been a proposal. The House Republicans have made a push to honor Charlie Kirk by placing him on U.S. currency. This is done by Representatives Abe Hamadeh and August Pfluger. They want the Treasury to authorize 400,000 silver dollars with Charlie Kirk's face on it. We don't need to read anything more about that. We know they kind of present, things like this, proposals, bills, etc., that are kind of outlandish and crazy all the time. So I don't want to spend too much time about that because most likely will not happen. But this is the kind of thing that our elected officials are worrying about, just so you guys know.
Maybe.
What do you mean maybe? Maybe it will happen, or maybe this is important?
No, it's like, quote unquote, maybe they're worrying about it. Or, I don't know, when I hear somebody's getting pieces of silver for an assassination, I go biblical immediately.
And please tell me about this. As a girl who had to Google exactly what the rapture was, I'm not super well versed in Bible stuff.
You're not familiar with Judas accepting 30 pieces of silver to turn on Jesus?
No.
Oh, it's like a big.
I'm sure it is. I have a void of knowledge when it comes to religion. I just I mean, the reason I haven't really looked into it is because I don't think they're real stories, so I didn't want to waste my time. But I appreciate that it's something that we, many people know and is applicable to many things that happen in the world today.
Yeah, that's become like a favorite response for me on Instagram is like, man, shocking what inflation does to 30 pieces of silver.
Okay. All right. I
Very
like
fun.
it. Thank you for explaining that. And then, so obviously the memorial was very long. I did log in for a little bit of time to watch the memorial when it was happening, but like I had other shit to do. I was like, I don't know if I can handle watching this whole thing. I did find a YouTube that the New York Post kindly edited together top 5 moments. Is this gonna mess us up though, Mike, if we try to play this?
Yeah, we definitely can't play New York Times.
It's New York Post, but yeah.
New York Post. Yeah, sorry.
Much funnier. All right. So basically it's, it's super let me see if I can play it and then kind of just read to you these top 5 moments. And obviously the ones you probably definitely saw was like the Erica Kirk, like I forgive him. She's been on performance of a fucking lifetime. Again,
I didn't see that.
you didn't?
No, the only thing I saw was her, was Trump trying to kiss her and then hip checking her a bunch.
Well, I mean, yeah, and obviously, like, she's his Miss Arizona or whatever. Like, he's known her.
One of my girls.
What?
One of my girls.
Yeah, he's known her longer than he's known Charlie. The whole thing is very incestuous and fucking strange. So, Trump starts and calls Charlie Kirk one of America's greatest patriots during his speech. Let's see. All right, let me put on the captions and we can go. So on that terrible day, this is Trump talking, September 10th, 2025, our greatest evangelist for American liberty became immortal. Listen to the Christian talking here. He's a model now for American freedom. We knew this was happening. I know I speak for everyone here today when I say that none of us will ever forget Charlie Kirk. And neither now will history. Haunting. And his name will live forever in the eternal chronicle of America's greatest patriots. He will live forever. Now, Erica, my husband, Charlie, he wanted to save, sorry, they're talking slow because it's so dramatic, young men. And then she goes into saying, just like the one who took his life. And she takes a really long moment, starts crying, whether it's real or fake, I cannot tell, looks up at the sky, talks about Jesus on the cross, saying, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And it's funny.
Jesus' his last words.
Right, because even I fucking know that. I know that the last words is, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. In the speech, she jumbles the words. She says, like, Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do, which is like minor, but it's like, if you're as Christian as you claim to be, you must have said that a million times. You must have heard that a million times. You're speaking slowly. And yes, big audience, you've just undergone something traumatic again. So I'm trying to give a little bit of grace, but I thought it was very weird that she misquoted something so famous and said it in the wrong order. Like, it just was like, very weird.
Have you ever seen Righteous Gemstones?
I've heard such good things about it. And I tried to watch an episode the other day, but I just didn't get into it. I know it's good. I think it's maybe what's the one about money that I don't know.
Succession?
Yeah, I was like, maybe it's like that where I need a couple episodes to get into it or something, because Succession rules.
Yeah, something. It is very much like that. I tried season 1 a couple of times, and then finally this year got into it, and I was like, oh man, this is probably my favorite show of all time. But
yeah,
they do have a Bible quiz show on there, and that's what this was reminding me of. Just getting tongue tied over.
Yeah, and then just even
who be wanting.
And with Erica Kirk, obviously we expect her, knowing who she is, we expect her speech to be, dripping in Christian nationalism. But Donald Trump is like the least religious person of all time. And even the language he used at this memorial just was it very gospel like, and I think that's just so problematic. And then, and then this is the moment where Erica goes, that man, that young man, she takes a dramatic pause and she says, I forgive him. And she forces some tears and bows her head. Uproarious applause. Then this other guy comes on who's apparently was Charlie's mentor. And he talks about the moment that Charlie was shot.
What's his name?
Frank Turek.
Okay.
And I'm confused because he's like wearing glasses, but it almost looks like the kind of glasses you would wear at a shooting range. But I think they're regular glasses, but who the fuck knows with these people? And he just talks about like the moment that Charlie was, taken down and how Charlie was like his son. And the last line is the one that is really religiously coded, is that he was looking, he goes, Charlie was already gone. He was looking past me right into eternity. So just like the way they're speaking about Charlie, the way they're immortalizing him, like basically trying to, turn him into a martyr or a saint that we know was going to happen. And then the number one moment that, as rated by the New York Post from the Charlie Kirk Memorial. Also, like, when we think about, like, the fact that there is a YouTube compilation, top 5 most emotional moments from Charlie Kirk's funeral, like, this feels like a South Park episode. Like, what bizarro land craziness are we living in right now? Anyway, yeah, and then the number one is like, well, they talk about the embrace, or Elon and Trump shaking hands and supposedly making up, and then the number one moment is the embrace shared by Donald Trump and Erica Kirk, which everyone else thought was just really fucking weird, but apparently that was the number one most emotional moment, as rated by the New York Post. So just so you guys, there was a lot of very religious speakers. And one of the things that a lot of people pointed out when writing about this was, where was Charlie Kirk beside his wife? Where was his family? Where was his mom? Where was his dad? Does he have cousins, brothers and sisters? I don't know if he has brothers and sisters, but like none of his other family like spoke. And it basically turned into this rally, this political and religious rally where everyone, got a little stage time to push their agenda on this massive audience. And there has not been a public mourning of this size since the death of the late Senator John McCain, who, reminder, was a prisoner of fucking war for 5+ years. Not a podcaster. And again, no disrespect from podcasters. I'm saying that as a podcaster. Then the next article I'm going to go into is it's called MAGA's.
Well,
yes?
I'm just wondering, does this cover the Stephen Miller thing at all?
What Stephen Miller thing?
So Stephen Miller spoke at the Charlie Kirk Memorial, and a lot of people are comparing his speech at the Charlie Kirk Memorial to Joseph Goebbels' "The Storm Is Coming."
Oh boy,
from 1932.
You know what, Mike? This is why it's necessary that you're on the show, because your internet and my internet, and I'm someone who is spending multiple hours per week prepping for this show. That it is so crazy how, based on what you search, your algorithm, your thought process, what you're looking up, how different the results and the things that stick out to us during the week are. I mean, can you find like a little snippet maybe of the speech that you could read to us, like a transcript? I'm sure someone did it.
Yeah, so I have a Grok breakdown explaining like the key similarities here.
Yeah.
All right. So the storm metaphor is awakening and vengeance. Goebbels in 32. So our dead comrade Horace Wessel wrote, and we are fulfilling his prophecy. People rise up and storm break loose. Well, we the people have awakened. We have risen against oppression. 15 million people have joined an army of revenge. And then Miller's quote, "The storm whispers to the warrior, you cannot withstand my strength. And the warrior whispers back, I am the storm. Erica's widow is the storm. We are the storm. They cannot imagine what they have awakened. You have awakened the dragon."
Okay. Yeah. I can't believe that wasn't getting more press, because that is so, and like there was that tone of like, oh, this means war against, the left, for sure. There was that energy. A lot of people were talking about how Trump, also included in his speech that he hates his enemies. No, duh, we see it. There was a story about that this week even, about how he hates his enemies and he wishes the worst for them. And he said that's one of the biggest differences between me and Charlie Kirk is that, Charlie, brought his enemies to the table where I just try to bring them down. Like this is the fucking president saying this. And for anyone who doesn't know who Joseph Goebbels is, it's a famous Nazi politician in Germany.
Which I think he was actually the Nazi minister of propaganda.
Oh, that was like his official title. Oh, he was he was the chief propagandist for the Nazi Party and then the Reich Minister of Propaganda from 1933 to 1945. Crazy that's a job title.
Well, yeah.
But yeah.
It was, so they were drawing comparisons between Kirk and this guy Horst Wessel, who was like a young SS officer. I mean, it would be akin to like an ICE member getting killed right now, right? On like going on a raid to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
He gets killed, and the Nazi Party decides to elevate this guy as a martyr for the coming.
And if someone told me like that this was like, some kind of secret pocketed plan that's, from Project 2025 where they're using, history's, one of history's worst time period as a playbook of how to, gain absolute power, that would make perfect sense to me. It's clear that they're trying to lean into authoritarianism. So, why not look at one of the best dictators to ever do it, really? Like, and in a way, even though it's disgusting and terrifying, at least someone's looking at history. How many times on this show have I said we have a fucking template for how these things go, and it is history? Well, even though I don't love the part of history that they're looking at and trying to replicate, good on the right for looking at history and seeing what worked and what didn't and taking it from there, taking some notes. Maybe the Democrats should do that as well.
A couple other examples. Goebbels, the other may lie, slander, and pour their scorn on us. The political days are numbered. You are the witnesses, the builders, the will bearers of our ideas. For 12 years, they have insulted and outlawed and slandered and persecuted us. Miller, to our enemies, you are nothing. You are wickedness. You are jealousy. You are envy. You are hatred. You are nothing. You can build nothing. You can produce nothing. You can create nothing. We are the ones who build. We are the ones who create. We are the ones who lift up humanity. Interestingly, he also at one point in this had a quote about, for 12 years we've been prosecuted, meaning like since the MAGA movement started in 2016, we've been prosecuted.
Like, and we meaning like Christians?
Meaning, the MAGA right that was there.
Right.
The people who, quote unquote, want to take the country back.
Yeah.
And then this last piece here, Goebbels, I'm speaking as a representative of the greatest movement of millions ever seen on German soil. You men, women, and comrades, and the bearers witness, builders and finishers of this unique people's uprising. Miller, our lineage and legacy hails back to Athens, to Rome, to Philadelphia, and Monticello. Our ancestors built the cities. We will prevail over the forces of wickedness and evil.
Wow, I love when they bring wickedness and evil into it. Yeah, I mean that's pretty frightening. That's not good. Don't love. Wow. Okay. Damn. Well, thank you for bringing that. I think that's definitely important. And leads us perfectly into this next piece that I chose. Gotta run it through the archive because everyone trying to make you pay, but I'm not paying for Vox. Gotta draw the line somewhere, even on the left. And that's a saying it as someone who has a Fox News login, but that's free. Okay. All right, so this is again from Vox by Catherine Kalidas, and this says how the martyrdom of Charlie Kirk is transforming MAGA. We knew this was going to happen. Or, I mean, anyone who on the left who didn't rush to celebrate and actually critically looked at what was happening knew that they were going to turn Charlie Kirk into a martyr. And that was bad. And I stand by the fact that political violence is bad, but we also knew this was coming, and we also knew this was going to be bad. And so any celebrating, I think, was, not only in poor taste, but also quite naive. And again, you don't have to mourn. You didn't have to show grief. That was certainly not asking that of anyone, for anyone who dies, for that matter. The movement is now becoming a faith that could outlive Donald Trump. Well, I don't think Donald Trump has that many years left, but Charlie Kirk has been turned into the first martyr of the MAGA faith, the first martyr of the MAGA faith. And this matters because it is martyr veneration that helped both Christianity and Islam transform from small local movements centered on charismatic preachers into global religions. In launching its own martyrs, MAGA may be moving from a movement focused on one beguiling leader in the person of Donald Trump to a broader faith that could outlast him. And I do want to quickly stop and apply this to Zoran Mamdani as well. Not that they have created... I mean, I actually he's not a martyr, obviously, because he's still alive, and we want him to stay alive. I'm very worried about his safety, as I've talked about many times before on this show. I hope he has the best security that our tax dollars can pay for. That being said, the fact that he has already been elevated to the level that he's been elevated to, again, someone who went from 40,000 followers on Instagram for a failed rap career to 4.4 million followers in the course of several months for merely presenting some pretty, ideas that basically many of the candidates all agreed on, and things that we definitely need in New York City, but he has made taken no action because he's not mayor yet, to actually make good on these promises yet. That he's already been elevated to the status he's elevated to makes me extremely nervous because I think of MAGA all the time, and I'm like, let us not make the mistake on the left that they made on the right by elevating someone merely based on the energy of the campaign and not on any actual deliveries, right? And so again, it's so crazy because
the left would never do that.
What I'm literally saying, you walked out of the room, Michael, but I literally am saying, like, I'm applying this to Zoran Mamdani because it really worries me that we're doing this.
Yeah, but the same thing applies to Obama.
I've talked about him many times on the show before. And there's a lot of similarities between Barack Obama's campaign and Zoran Mamdani's campaign as well, which I've been reading about in a book called Words That Work, I believe, is the title of that book. It's, which I was reading, because I was running for mayor. Anyway, so all that to say, I mean this because I say the same thing about me, having been on the air and in your ears and having the privilege of, speaking to you for over a decade now, some of you. I always say the same thing. If you find yourself agreeing with me or thinking that I'm like so great or wonderful, I ask you to stop listening for a couple weeks because something has gone wrong in your brain. And it's not because I don't think I'm fantastic and wonderful. I do. But it's just like there shouldn't be that much unquestioned agreement with anybody. And I'm talking about with your husband, with your children, whoever it is in your life. If you just find yourself, you are a unique human being with a unique brain and a unique life experience, and no one has lived your life except for you. So if there is anyone that you think is the answer to all your problems, who is always right, who has mastered life in a way that you aspire to, and this applies to religion and politics and all these things, or a celebrity that you might like, I really, 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 really want you to say, that's a red flag for me. We look for red flags in others so much. That's a red flag for you. And please recognize that red flag in you. It is so important, and it happens everywhere. And I get it. We're lost and we want hope. And it's great that we see hope in leaders. And the Democratic Party so genuinely needed that fervor. But it's just like, and even some of my most philanthropic, kind-heartedest, out of the public eye friends have brought this up to me independently. And I am so glad because I always just want to check in with myself, and I'm like, is this just because like you're mad because of course like the year you run, someone has to like make the mayoral race more popular than it's ever been in the history of fucking mayoral races? And it's really not that. It's just like we can celebrate someone when they do what they said they were going to do. But even then, the level that we are elevating some of these politicians to when they haven't made good on their promises, or even if they do make good on their promises, it's like, well, why are we celebrating them? It's weird. Like, it's like the bar is so low. It's like, okay, well, if they make the policies happen that they promise, like that's what they were supposed to do. They shouldn't be launched then into king status. They're fucking doing their job. That's just that. So again, it just makes me, I'm always looking out for cults and followers and lemming behavior. And I just really see that on both the left and the right now. And it's both because we just haven't had good leaders or energetic leaders or people that we can get behind in a long time. So I understand where it's coming from. Since the assassination, back to the article, a variety of MAGA faux pundits have compared the MAGA response to Kirk's murder, including Stephen Miller's convenient claim that Kirk's last message to him was a call to, quote, dismantle the radical left. Yeah, exactly. What were the chances? To the response to the killing of Horst Wessel, there we go, a German Nazi murdered by two members of Communist Party of Germany in 1930. I pulled this one last minute, so that's that makes sense now that this is mentioned. In the hands of Nazi propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels, Wessel's death became a rallying cry, and Wessel himself a heroic martyr whose death symbolized the Nazi struggle against communism. Goebbels had Wessel mythologized through songs, rallies, and public ceremonies, creating a cult around him that galvanized support for the Nazi movement. Interesting,
it was the Nazi national anthem.
What?
The song about Herbert Hessel was the Nazi national anthem for like 8 years.
I don't know what the Nazi national anthem is, but I love that you know that. And I'm actually surprised that like no country music star has released a song about Charlie Kirk yet. Not one that I saw, at least. Okay, I'm sure someone's working on it.
I've heard about 15. Like there's
you have, well, like by a major artist.
There was a by like MAGA rappers, by Tom McDonald.
No, yeah, no. I'm talking about like a more prominent person, like Charlie Kirk. Country music memorial songs. I don't want to say memorial because then it's going to be like all the people that performed. Yeah, I mean, like Wicked Al presented the Ballad of Charlie Kirk. Prove me wrong, but that was like only 30,000 views. Okay, Jason Aldean and wife Brittany sing a Luke Bryan cover for Charlie Kirk. Well, that's different because that was people performing for him. All right, well, we'll keep our eyes on any good ones. The comparisons to Horst Wessel are not without merit. His death was a major boon for Nazi propaganda, just as Kirk's death has given MAGA and the Trump administration proximate cause to escalate attacks on their political adversaries, which is Trump's number one favorite thing to do. But those comparisons miss something crucial. Goebbels himself was consciously drawing on an earlier model, and it is that model, the late antique cult of the martyrs, that the MAGA faithful are now consciously or not also invoking. And if you click on what the martyrdom in late antiquity means, it says martyrdom featured prominently in the lives of late antique Christian communities of the 4th and 5th centuries, the great persecution of the early 4th century, and later on inter-Christian conflicts. Okay, so it's just like, again, they're taking examples from history, which again, they're using it for bad, but I think the actual concept and the idea that they're working off is smart. Until now, the evangelical Christianity that Kirk embraced, and still the default mode of worship for American Christian nationalists, has had only a tenuous relationship with martyrdom. There have been powerful stories, to be sure. Cassie Bernal, the teenager at Columbine who supposedly declared her faith before being shot. I remember that story. Or John Allen Chow, the young missionary killed on North Sentinel Island. But these episodes are remembered as isolated moments of witness-inspiring stories of faith, rather than built into an ongoing culture of veneration as evidenced by the official support for the efforts to celebrate Kirk's memory, including from the President of the United States. Evangelicals have often been suspicious of martyr saints in part because this brand of martyr veneration smacks of works and Catholic hagiography rather than the evangelical emphasis on personal salvation. That reluctance has been a weakness because martyrs inspire the faithful, galvanize moments, and spread a message far more effectively than any sermon. After all, what better evidence of truth than that there were hundreds, nay thousands, prepared to die in witness to that truth? In fact, while it is now common to claim that Christians were relentlessly persecuted by the Roman Empire, in recent years this idea has been widely challenged. Scholars like Candida Moss have convincingly argued that while individual Christians were persecuted and occasionally killed for their beliefs, the idea of persistent and widespread persecution was largely an invention of Christians themselves. Researchers have argued that stories of Christian persecution were insidiously crafted not just to inspire the faithful, but also to silence and shame nonconformists and keep the churches funded. In a similar vein, the MAGA movement, ever resourceful and idiosyncratic, has seemingly turned to the medieval Christian traditions, creating a martyr who would be at home in any 6th century book or church. And as MAGA's first martyr, the myth being crafted around Kirk both mirrors that of earlier religions' martyrs while still bearing the unique marks of the MAGA faith, including the reshaping of the Pentecostal Kirk into a generic Christian who really loved America, by the way. How to create a martyr. On September 9th, Kirk had been a member of the MAGA manosphere, a community college dropout who argued with college students. The co-founder and face of the conservative activist group Turning Point USA, Kirk entered the national political scene as a teenager. At that time, he was part of what was even then a dying breed of secular American conservative and, at least publicly, did not show much interest at all in religion, except to urge his fellow conservatives to respect the separation of church and state. Then, in 2021, Kirk partnered with Rob McCoy, the senior pastor of Godspeed Calvary Chapel in Thousand Oaks, California, to found Turning Point USA Faith, a faith-based version of Turning Point. This was part of an increasingly religious tenor in Kirk's public statements and views. However, on September 9th, few would have thought of Kirk as primarily or even particularly a religious figure. Yet, the moment he was pronounced dead, that began to change. Alongside portrayals of Kirk as a defender of free speech, there was the explicitly religious veneration and storytelling. All over the MAGA internet and even in reactionary circles abroad, people said Kirk was an evangelist, even a modern-day John the Baptist. His death will be the impetus for revival. Mainstream media repeated the claim that Kirk wanted Christianity to be his legacy, and official White House social media, too, referred to his memorial as a revival. The hagiography of Charlie Kirk has begun. I have to look up exactly what that word means. It's like
Hagiography.
So what
It's
what
the
is
canonization, I believe.
Hagi?
Yeah, writing of the lives of saints.
Oh, okay.
So it's like instead of
religious
a
jargon.
biography, a hagiography.
Hagiography.
It is hag. It's not hag. It's hag.
Okay.
I said it right.
Hagiography.
Hagiography. So it's hagiography, but yeah, it's the writing of the lives of saints, which is why I didn't know what the fuck that word meant. I was like, obviously, it's like from the ography. I was like, okay, it has to do with like writing about a life. And I was like, that's where I got into that, but that makes sense. Okay. It's especially clear that Kirk is being made into a martyr for the MAGA movement because he's being celebrated as a generic Christian. In the process, his real religious background is blurred or even completely ignored. Kirk's wife, Erica, is a Roman Catholic, and Kirk has had nice things to say about both Roman Catholics and Eastern Orthodox Christians. But make no mistake, Charlie Kirk himself, to the extent that he had developed an adult religious identity over the past 5 years, was a Pentecostal, a particularly evangelical brand of Christianity. Yet, that hasn't stopped both the reactionary American Catholic Cardinal Timothy Dolan from comparing Kirk to a modern-day St. Paul, nor, most bizarrely of all, has it prevented Metropolitan Tikhon Shekhinov, an influential bishop in the Russian Orthodox Church known as Putin's confessor, from calling Kirk's death, did you say martyric? And declaring that Kirk is truly effective in missionary work. On social media and message boards, traditionalist Catholics and Eastern Orthodox Christians have declared with certainty that Kirk would have converted to their favored church if only permitted to live a bit longer. He was, quote, interested after all, and although he never gave any real indication of any pending conversion, and many evangelical influencers have pushed back against this idea. It is a blurring of lines Kirk might have approved of. He has an upcoming book advocating that Christians adopt the Jewish practice of keeping the Sabbath, putting him in a long line of evangelicals who co-opt Jewish practice to their own ends. The conflation of Kirk's religious identity, both by him and his would-be hagiographers, makes most sense when placed within the larger story of how MAGA itself is remaking, of how MAGA is remaking religion itself. Whew. For decades, the religious right sought to apply Christian scripture to American life. They were traditionalists, often theocrats, who wanted the law to conform to the church. But Trump's new religious right reverses that relationship. In this movement, theology is bent to serve the nation, and churches exist to strengthen an America defined by nationalism, whiteness, and loyalty to Trump. And it's interesting because I remember having a conversation years ago about nationalism, not white nationalism, and just like thinking like, you know, in some ways how I thought it was like perhaps, you know, we do need to concentrate on ourselves first. And not that this is, again, like from years ago, and many things have changed then. But it has been so messed up by this administration. And what I certainly, you know, meant was not like pulling foreign aid. I meant it in a very simplistic way of like nationalism as in really tackling things like poverty and racism here in the States. But it's interesting to see, I guess, like terrorism, nationalism is in the eye of the beholder. Because it has such a negative connotation now because of MAGA's chokehold on it. The Religious Liberty Commission, packed not with the mainline Protestants that have dominated American religious life, but with evangelicals, conservative Catholics, Orthodox Jews, and even Muslim converts, makes this explicit. It is not doctrine that binds them, but a shared sense of cultural siege. This is why Kirk's memory works best for the movement if he is treated not as Pentecostal, but as a generic Christian, and specifically as a Christian whose Christian faith was explicitly tied to the MAGA cause. Theological specifics, once so divisive between Catholics, evangelicals, and Orthodox, matter far less than political utility. In a movement that builds theology to fit politics, Kirk can be cast as an evangelical evangelist, a Catholic saint, or even a hero for Russian Orthodoxy, because the point is not religious accuracy, but political cohesion. And frankly, and this again, political cohesion rather than religious accuracy is also a great line to apply to liberals that we've talked about on the show before, that the right has found a way to certainly not look at nuance, but to not look at nuance to their own advantage, to not nitpick the small differences between them, or even, as this article kind of dives into, these rather large differences between them when you're talking about looking at what each faith believes, and to realize that they must come together for the greater good of political cohesion of the right. And we certainly do not see that on the left. You could have, you could say, I want Palestine freed on Monday, and someone could say, I think that Tuesday is a better day, and those two people will never fucking speak again. That's what's going on the fucking left. And it's tiresome. I'm tired by it too. It's tiresome. It's off-putting. It loses us voters. It's a fucking problem. And frankly, the generalization of Kirk's religious identity is only possible because he was part of the MAGA faithful and came to his faith that way. Thus, it was a MAGA Christianity. Take, for example, Kirk's praise of the role of the Virgin Mary in Catholicism, which Catholics and Orthodox have cited as proof that he would have eventually joined them. Kirk had not come to believe in the intercessory powers of Mary, or been bowled over by the countless Marian miracles that dot the history of Christianity. No, Kirk thought that the veneration of Mary was an antidote to toxic feminism, teaching in his non-committal way it might even be enough to make him convert. Medieval at the memorial. Oddly, those social media commentators desperate to be Kirk's co-religionists might be onto something. On the surface, the memorial for Kirk on Sunday in Arizona has largely been noted for its evangelical character. And it is true, the event had contemporary Christian worship music and plenty of pleas for people to read their Bibles, subtle hints to experience the personal conversion at the heart of evangelicalism. And this, sudden talk of the rapture is super evangelical based too. But these aspects of evangelical worship and theology have long found their way into other parts of Christianity. Charismatic Catholics exist, and what took place at Kirk's memorial, from the speeches to the memorabilia, was not simply evangelical enthusiasm. It echoed much older patterns drawn straight out of late antiquity and the Middle Ages, eras that predate evangelicalism altogether. First, there is the much discussed contrast between the speeches given by Erica Kirk and Donald Trump. As many progressive commentators have pointed out, Erica Kirk said she forgave her husband's killer. She was followed by the president, who immediately called for revenge. Both drew applause from the crowd. Yeah, they just whatever. We'll just clap for anything. This may simply reflect an audience willing to cheer anything, but it also echoes the world of the medieval saint. In that world, the virtuous woman, often a virgin or widow, pleads for mercy and forgiveness for the saint's persecutors, while the strong Christian king seeks revenge. Yeah, it's classic good cop, bad cop. The idea was central to medieval notions of queenship. It is a model that allows the language of Christian mercy to coexist with the harsh realities of authoritarian rule. Yeah, you have someone who you call in to say, we are still good Christians and we're going to do what good Christians do, which is forgive. And then you have the guy who's like kind of a pretend Christian, but who has all this political attachment to the religion, who's like, but here's what we're going to do war-wise. Again, horrific, but I gotta say, really good plan and well executed, no pun intended, or maybe definitely intended. Which is exactly what MAGA is aiming for. It was also a model that allowed for women to have a significant public role while not transgressing normative ideas of femininity. Say, for example, Erica Kirk becoming the CEO of Turning Point USA. Then there's the merch. I don't know if you guys even saw this. There was a lot of merch. There was also merch made by not Turning Point that was like disgusting. I don't know if this was actually made or if it was like AI generated merch. But a friend of mine sent me, because he was horrified too, but was dark humor, sent me this Charlie Kirk sprinkler where the water came out of his neck. Did you see this, Mike?
No.
Fucking crazy. That's like what I woke up to a couple days ago, and I was like, I can't handle this first thing in the morning.
I did see a pretty cool story pertaining to Charlie Kirk merch, though. There's a black dude in Florida who claims that he has secured the copyright trademark for Turning Point merch, and he is going to be selling it, and every dollar brought in is going to pro-black charities.
So how did he obtain that?
I don't know.
That's yeah. I'm like I would, especially because Turning Point is continuing. It seems like they would have never have not gotten the copyright. I don't know. All right. Well, I'll finish off this article, and if you could find any more information, that is very interesting. Then there's the merch: hats, T-shirts, and cups sold bearing images of Kirk with a halo above his head, or walking hand in hand with Christ in paradise. These would find more home in medieval Catholicism than among idol-fearing evangelicals. These are all part of medieval Christianity, a pre-evangelical way of making and celebrating a martyr. It is a way of celebrating the saints that the evangelicals of the MAGA faith have seemingly embraced, a part of Catholicism they have embraced, despite the theological contradictions. The earliest Christians celebrated the Eucharist over the tombs of martyrs. To this day, the relics of saints are buried in the altars of Orthodox and Catholic churches. That is how central the cult of the martyrs was to the early Christian church's self-understanding.
As I told you not long ago, it put Venice on the map. Stealing the bones of an apostle made it a destination city for the old world.
Even if most of the stories were simply made up. Today, the religious movement that is being built in America at this moment is as dangerous and unprecedented as its new politics. And just like Christianity 2 millennia ago, this new MAGA faith is going to need martyrs for all the reasons Christianity did, to inspire the faithful, punish dissenters, and keep the money flowing. Martyrs made Christianity more than a small sect that would soon die out like so many before and after it. They made it a religion, offering the movement the political tools to grow and consolidate. The MAGA movement has, consciously or not, learned from history. I think it actually is conscious. I know we like to talk on the left about how stupid the right is, but I think that they actually plan and organize extremely well, and we could take some fucking notes for them if we got our heads out of our fucking asses for a second. I loved that article. That was a really well-researched and presented article. Shout out to Catherine Kalaidis for that. I don't know her, but I just want to give her props because that's one of my favorite articles I've read in quite some time. Very interesting article. And I think really spot on. All right, let's move on. We've done enough about Charlie Kirk. Let's move on to climate change. This is an article from the Washington Post, again, about Donald Trump's thoughts on climate change. Trump upbraids UN in speech, claiming your countries are going to hell. And upbraids means to find fault or to scold. I don't even think I've ever heard anyone use that word. Have you ever heard anyone use that word? We all know I don't have an extensive vocabulary, but the Washington Post really likes to point it out. All right.
No, I've heard of upbraid. I've never heard of upbraid.
Upbraid as in like the hairstyle? Is that what you just said to me?
No, not the hairstyle. Like ABRADE.
What is that?
I think it's destroy or something. It's a Magic the Gathering card.
Oh, I'm like, is that? It's like it says
scrap or wear away by friction or erosion.
But it also, it depends. There's like a braid, ABRADE, but then there's also a braid, ABRAID, and a braid, ABRADE is to rub or wear away with friction, but upbraid with a similar spelling to upbraid is to emerge or rouse from sleep, like to become alert or to make aware of. So that seems like that's more related.
I'm going to start using that in my everyday. Darling, a braid. A braid. Greet the day.
I think it would be great. I think we all, there's been so many articles about how like young Americans have such a smaller vocabulary than even in the 1950s Americans did. And I'm certainly one of those Americans. All right. So Trump upbraids UN in a speech claiming your countries are going to hell. And like, listen, I'm all for learning new words. And you know that I constantly say I don't know what this means and look it up on air on this show. I think too often we pretend we know what things mean when they don't, and that just makes the spread of information worse. That being said, another thing that we always are talking about is how the fucking left needs to dumb it down. This is not they're not using upbraid in the body of the article. They're using upbraid in the fucking headline. If you want people to click your fucking headline and get the information and get it from you, just write scolds. Like, why are we writing upbraids? Come on, people. Do we want to win elections or do we fucking not?
Maybe, though, that's the joy of the paywall is like if you're on this site browsing the headlines, it's because, you've paid money, you're a smart person, this is going to intrigue you versus.
Well, then do what Fox News does, which I think is very interesting, is on the landing page, they'll have one headline that when you click, it turns it into a different headline. I mean, about the same article, but then do that. And because this is something that you can find if you're not a subscriber, but like, I'm not going to want to become a subscriber if I think that this is a place that's going to use words that I'm not going to understand. Trump upbraids UN in speech, claiming your countries are going to hell. In blunt terms, Trump blasted the organization. Like, yeah, they're in this, what is the proper word for this? Subheadline? Like, you're using, they even acknowledge that the word they used in the main headline was too big. In blunt terms, Trump blasted the organization for its focus on migration and climate change, calling global warming a con job. Like, yeah, blasted, great word. We all know what that means. United Nations, President Donald Trump on Tuesday called for fellow leaders to halt global migration and end the fight against climate change, taking aim at two of the United Nations' core issues as he sought to elevate his domestic agenda into a playbook the whole world should follow. Right. In an address from the biggest international stage, Trump took aim at the organization's priorities, but said it had, quote, tremendous potential. But the message he delivered in unusually stark terms at the annual gathering of world leaders rebuked the values of the organization that seeks to reduce suffering from global conflicts, famines, and persecution, and address climate change by reducing emissions and the burning of fossil fuels. Trump has long sought to reduce immigration and abandon climate commitments inside U.S. borders, but has spent less time advocating that other countries do the same thing. In the nearly hour-long speech Tuesday, nearly 4 times the official 15-minute time limit, he globalized those priorities, declaring that individual nations need to put their own interests ahead of a broader cooperative agenda. Wow. So embarrassing to go over that, to run the light the way he did. Immigration and the high cost of so-called green renewable energy is destroying a large part of the free world, Trump told leaders in the soaring UN's General Assembly Hall. Countries that cherish freedom are fading fast because of their politics on these two subjects. You need strong borders and traditional energy sources if you are going to be great again. Trump took special aim at the leaders of wealthy European nations that have long been Washington's closest allies, many of whom are facing right-wing challengers who model themselves after the U.S. president. Again, right word, internationally. Europe has a long way to go, with many countries being on the brink of destruction because of the green energy agenda, Trump said. Both the immigration and their suicidal energy ideas will be the death of Western Europe. In a winding address that hopped across hot-button issues, including a long-held grievance over the organization's rejection of his bid to renovate its headquarters and his efforts to promote world peace, Trump claimed that without swift action on immigration, your countries are going to hell. That's a direct quote. Your countries are going to hell. And he called to protect Christianity, which he called, quote, the most persecuted religion on the planet today, which is a theme that has been going around. And it's a theme that we're going to talk about at length in a couple weeks for this evergreen episode that I have planned. And my stance, just as a spoiler, is not that Christianity is persecuted, but it's certainly what people are attempting to make it seem like. He also forcefully challenged, and you know, and this is more like it's being threatened. They are saying, I think by Islam is like the point, but it also can make it seem like it's being persecuted by liberals. You know, there's two ways that you can kind of interpret that, and I'm sure they actually probably mean both groups. He also, because, you know, the one you can use to gain power globally, the Islam one, and then domestically you can use it to gain power over libs. He also forcefully challenged the science of climate change. Okay. This is a quote, it's the greatest con job ever perpetuated on the world, which is a very ironic thing for the greatest con job ever perpetuated on the world to be saying. The carbon footprint is a hoax made up by people with evil intentions, and they're heading down a path of total destruction. This is what we would call, on my relationship podcast, Guys We Fucked, projection. The United Nations helps fund an international migration system that provides support and shelter to refugees and migrants around the world, promoting an asylum system that advocates that people who face war at home have the right to seek protection outside their borders. And in recent decades, world leaders have also used the United Nations to build a global system to fight the climate change that is coming from the greenhouse gases trapped in the Earth's atmosphere, heating the planet. Both stances conflict with Trump's agenda, but he has more often declared that the United States would go it alone. The president has held back funding for the United Nations, causing a budget crisis for the organization. His reception on Tuesday, after a 6-year hiatus, marked a significant shift. In Trump's first term, leaders who opposed his policy stances held out hope that his election was an aberration and that the United States would soon return to its more familiar internationalist role. Now they recognize that Trump is speaking on behalf of a strong constituency in his country and that the changes he is bringing to the international system could outlast his presidency. Again, this is big, important stuff. There was notable laughter in the room when Trump in 2018 delivered a familiar line from the campaign trail telling world leaders that he, quote, has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country. And you know how men react when they are laughed at? By killing people. So, this year, the room was largely silent as Trump cycled through grievances. A malfunctioning escalator that forced him and First Lady Melania Trump to climb stairs. A false claim that Muslims want to impose Sharia law on Western cities. And that radicalized environmentalists in the United States want to kill all the cows. Okay, they don't want that. He trumpeted an ever-growing list of conflicts he says he has resolved, now up to 7, including tension between India and Pakistan and 12 days of fighting between Israel and Iran. Some of Trump's claims about peace are exaggerated, including in Africa, where the leader of the Democratic Republic of Congo said Monday that much remains to be done before peace is achieved with Rwanda. And Trump has gained little traction with the 2 highest-profile wars he declared he would end, first one being in the Gaza Strip and the second in Ukraine. But other leaders, including Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, have nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize he openly covets in hopes of securing his favor. And it's also like, the fuck does Netanyahu care? Yeah, sure, I'll nominate you. It doesn't matter to me. The president styled himself as a world peacemaker, but said the UN was doing little to help him. The United Nations, quote, has such tremendous, tremendous potential, but it's not even coming close to living up to that potential, Trump said. All they seem to do is write a really strongly worded letter and then never follow that letter up. I mean, that's kind of funny. It's empty words, and empty words don't solve war. Still, resolution to key global conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine has remained elusive. In Gaza, a resolution to the war seems to be getting further away as Israel escalates its bombardment of the territory after nearly 2 years of conflict, frustrating the U.S. president. Several Washington allies have recognized a Palestinian state in recent weeks over sharp U.S. objections that doing so benefits Hamas, which was kind of one of my other stories, but I'm glad it's covered here because we can kind of combine these together. During their speeches on Tuesday, 3 leaders Trump has embraced in the Middle East, the Emir of Qatar, the King of Jordan, and the President of Turkey, sharply criticized Israel's conduct in Gaza and urged major powers to bring an end to the war. In Ukraine, meanwhile, sorry, I'm really congested. Trump had stepped back from his most active efforts after meeting Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska last month. But on Tuesday, he made sharply pro-Kyiv comments that called Russia's military a paper tiger, suggesting that Ukraine should reclaim its full territory from Moscow. Putin has refused to meet Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky despite Trump's push, and he has increased strikes on Ukraine in the weeks since. The annual gathering of world leaders always sets the stage for unusual and sometimes awkward encounters. Trump's visit put him on the podium directly after Brazil's leftist president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, whose government the Trump administration has blasted and sanctioned for its conviction of Lula's predecessor, a far-right Trump ally. Lula stood as a counterweight to the U.S. president's right-wing populism, hailing the conviction of his predecessor, Jair Bolsonaro, for attempting to overturn the country's 2022 election, a fate Trump avoided after federal prosecutors dropped charges against him last year. Lula, who has sought to speak for the developing world, placed blame on the West for the protracted conflict in Gaza, saying it exposed the myth of ethical exceptionalism of the West. This massacre would not have happened without the complicity of those who could have prevented it in Gaza, he said. Trump said that he and Lula ran into each other just before his speech. Quote, he seemed like a very nice man, actually. He liked me, I liked him, Trump said. At least for about 39 seconds, we had excellent chemistry. Trump planned to host a dinner for world leaders Tuesday evening. Ahead of Trump's speech on Tuesday, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres decried funding cuts to the United Nations, an implicit reference to the Trump administration's rescission of $1 billion in congressionally appropriated funding for 2025 UN dues and peacekeeping operations, and its refusal to pay money still owed for 2024. Cuts to aid are wreaking havoc, Guterres said. They are a death sentence for many, for so many more, a stolen future. Guterres, like the wider UN community, is still trying to learn Trump's plans for the international body. Trump has ordered a review of all U.S. funding that has not yet been released by the White House, a decision that is holding many diplomats in a state of suspense. No one in New York has really had a sense of whether there is a Trump strategy and what U.S. red lines might be at the UN, said Richard Gowan, a UN expert at the International Crisis Group, who noted that Trump's ambassador to the organization, former National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, had not been confirmed by the Senate until Friday. In a Fox News interview ahead of Trump's speech, Secretary of State Marco Rubio described the institution as ineffectual and, quote, feckless. In a place like Haiti that's been overrun by gangs that control that country and has destabilized the region, the U.S. is asking for the UN to step up and play a very important role, Rubio said on Fox and Friends. We have a lot of support, but it looks like China might stand in the way of this effort to bring that about. The UN will play no role if they do that. What a week. What a week. And although that entire article was filled with a lot of crazy things Trump said, I specifically wanted to hone in on climate change again because it is Climate Week, which the hub for it is New York. But secondly, because I thought it was very interesting that Trump is such a denier of it. When you Google climate change and U.S. and I think I Googled what's up with climate change basically was my Google search, and the first thing to come up, or one of the first things, was NASA's actual page describing what's happening with climate change. It's literally science.nasa.gov /climate-change. Okay. And why this is important is it's very interesting to me that Trump is denying climate change when NASA is plainly, openly speaking about it, the science behind it, the proof that they had. And NASA, as a reminder, is not privately owned. It's an agency of the United States government. So it's not owned by any individual or entity. It was established in Congress in 1958 through the National Aeronautics and Space Act. And it is funded by taxpayers through the federal budget to conduct civilian space exploration and research on things like fucking climate change. It's an independent agency that exists within the executive branch. Yes, Michael. Are you going to say something about not believing in climate change? I can't handle that right now.
No. I mean, my thoughts on that are still up in the air. I'm waiting on more evidence. But
when you go to the actual climate change landing page on NASA, it gives you the vital signs of the fucking Earth: the carbon dioxide, the global temperature, the methane, and the Arctic sea ice minimum extent. Just in case anyone's interested. Go ahead.
No, I was just chiming in to say that in addition to all those things that you said, NASA is, according to Trump's labor union, they've designated NASA as primarily an intelligence/national security agency as of about a month ago.
Oh my God! So this is your favorite. Well, and do they have a landing page for that now? Let's look. So if we look so I'm in the actual, on the page in their search bar, I wrote intelligence. So artificial intelligence is the first response.
So here's the rundown. An executive order issued by Trump to
what's the source?
spacepolicyonline.com.
Okay.
But I mean, they cite the executive order issued by Trump,
right?
But he lists NASA among other intelligence agencies such as the NSA and FBI. He says that the unions do not have collective bargaining rights because they have.
I do want to say also when I just land at spacepolicyonline.com, it looks one step above a MySpace, but okay. It's a union busting thing, but because of the executive order that he made, he's designated that this union does not have collective bargaining power because they are in fact a intelligence and national security as the primary function. So basically, we know you're really into space and research and science, but let's redirect. Yeah, and I mean, again, hopefully some of the things that are going on with climate change. But I mean, literally, you go, so they have the vital signs. The first article, when you go to the NASA official site under climate change, is about wildfires and climate change. Then they have the latest news section, and then they literally have a thing that says, how do we know climate change is real? There is unequivocal evidence that Earth is warming up at an unprecedented rate. Human activity is the principal cause. Earth orbiting satellites and new technologies have helped scientists see the big picture. collecting many different types of information about our planet and its climate all over the world. These data collected over many years reveal the signs and patterns of a changing climate. And then you click on that, and they have tons of evidence, scientific evidence. It says a rate of change since the mid 20th century is unprecedented over millennial. So I just found that to be very interesting. The president saying one thing, but then this government agency that we pay for saying something completely different, All right. Let's go into a couple things. I mean, obviously, we got to talk about Tylenol and autism 100%. So let's get it right into that. So this is from NPR. This is 3 thoughts from an autism researcher on Trump's acetaminophen, aka Tylenol, and vaccine claims. Let's see. And this is by Obed Manuel and Michelle Martin. President Trump's suggestion that a link exists between autism and acetaminophen, the active ingredient in Tylenol, has raised concerns within the scientific community. It's almost like we sense a theme here. Trump v. scientists. Trump, along with Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Chief Dr. Oz, said Monday that autism rates are up because pregnant women are taking the medicine that is often used to treat pain and fever. Taking Tylenol is not good. That's a quote from our president. Trump said during an announcement, Tylenol, not good, in which he also discouraged giving the medicine to young children. Okay. You can give Tylenol to a fucking puppy, like for real. I mean, please Google things, before you give. But there's a lot of human medicine you can even give to animals, okay? Tylenol's maker, Kenvue, told NPR in a statement that independent, sound science clearly shows that taking acetaminophen does not cause autism. We strongly disagree with any suggestion otherwise and are deeply concerned about the health risks and confusion this poses for expecting mothers and parents. Helen Tager-Flusberg, director of the Center for Autism Research Excellence, which is abbreviated as CARE at Boston University, and founder of the Coalition of Autism Scientists, called the administration's announcement appalling. She said it was a very significant distortion of what science says about any possible links between acetaminophen and autism. The message is likely to impact millions of lives of pregnant women right now, mothers of autistic children who are going to be so fearful that this is what they did to cause their child's autism, which is absolutely not the case, Tager-Flusberg said. Speaking to NPR's Michelle Martin, Tager-Flusberg, who has studied autism for decades, responded to claims Trump made about autism, acetaminophen, and vaccines, and the FDA's move to label leucovorin as a treatment option for autism. It's giving ivermectin, is it not? Genetics play a larger role in autism.
Right. Have you looked into the ivermectin thing?
Oh, or are we gonna go pro ivermectin now?
No, I mean it's like,
I looked into it extensively when it was a hot topic.
Yeah, I mean when for people to say that this is a horse dewormer is one thing. To say that this is a thing that has not had any adverse effects on people, and at least anecdotally seems to be working. I mean, there was no clinical trials.
And we love anecdotal on this show.
What clinical trials were done for the vaccine we put in our body, Corinne? Like,
I am on your side with that. I said I hope it wasn't rushed, but I don't know.
I'm just saying, the ivermectin one is that's low hanging fruit and seems like kind of a not exactly there might not be a 1-to-1 comparison. What is worth noting is who hawks this Levushin, whatever the hell it's called, Levusamine.
Well, I mean, if you're interested in what ivermectin can and can't do, there's a wealth of research in this New York Times article from March 31st, 2025. We're not getting into any COVID-related conversations right now, though. Okay. Genetics play a larger role. At the White House Monday, Trump said pregnant patients should fight like hell not to take acetaminophen. He continued by saying there may be a point where you have to, and that you'll have to work out with yourself, so don't take Tylenol. A study released in August by Harvard University found that women who said they took acetaminophen while pregnant seemed more likely to have a child diagnosed with autism. Ann Bauer, an epidemiologist who worked on that study, told NPR she worried it was too soon for the federal government to offer guidance and that the research community needed to see more evidence. Tager Flussberg said that if there is an association between acetaminophen and autism, it is small and limited and interacts most likely with genetics, which is the main contribution to what causes autism. She added there's absolutely no evidence out there to support the kind of strong statement that we heard for President Trump. There is no link between the autism and the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine. Tager Flussberg said the combination of MMR vaccine, measles, mumps, and rubella, which Trump took aim at on Monday also, is perfectly safe and that research has completely debunked any links between it and autism. Study after study have found no link between autism and the vaccine, which is typically administered to children after their first birthday, and again, between ages 4 and 6, according to the CDC. On Monday, Trump suggested splitting the MMR vaccines administration into multiple visits. Don't let them, that Mike is raising his hands.
I've been asking for that from my doctor from the moment my daughter was
But you
born.
can do that if you want to. That you have the ability as a person in America with autonomy. If you want to go to the doctor 3 times and get those vaccines separately, you can do that.
She told me that is not. I mean, at least in whatever plan I have, whatever doctor I'm going to, that is not.
Meaning it's not covered by your insurance, not meaning that they couldn't, if you paid out of pocket, separate them, correct?
I asked her verbatim, is it at all possible to do this? She said no.
Did she know that you couldn't pay out of pocket?
I don't know.
Okay, because I'm like, usually like that kind of stuff, you can break up if you want to, unless is the MMR vaccine is it one injection now? I mean, so I'm like that. If it's one fluid dose, maybe that's the reason. MMR it one singular vaccine? Because then that would make sense. Yeah, it's okay. So that's why it's a combination of 3 vaccines in one shot. Can you separate the MMR vaccine if you wanted to?
I had a very candid conversation with my daughter's doctor recently where she was like, hey, you're going to need X, Y, and Z. And I said, well, we'll see when the time comes.
It says right here on the CDC website, unless the parent or caregiver expresses a preference for MMRV vaccine, CDC recommends that MMR vaccine and varicella vaccine should be okay, this is a different one. I was like, that one. Because I was like, what's V? Varicella? This means that parents have a decision to make and they will rely. So you do have a decision as far as if you want to get the varicella included. I don't know about the other ones. I mean, obviously, I would go, but I'm like that. That had to be the reason is that they have combined. They have assessed that it is so safe that they literally have put it into one singular shot.
Yeah.
So that makes sense to me now. All right. On Monday, Trump suggested splitting up the MMR vaccines administration into multiple visits. Don't let them pump your baby up with the largest pile of stuff you've ever seen in your life, going into that delicate little body of a baby. Okay, he always has to make it weird. Even if it's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, you just break it up, I would say, into 5, but let's say four visits to the doctor instead of 1. So he says that you should break up 3 vaccines into 4 visits. That was just the quote from our president. How is that even? Are you getting half of one on one day? What does that even mean? Tager Flussberg said Trump raising the concern is likely to raise fear among other mothers, confusion and chaos for pediatricians. This is really not what our society needs right now. She added, "Oh man, she's infuriated." Because I mean, the concept of separating vaccines at its core is not crazy, but it's not because it causes autism. It's usually because it will like make you feel ill, like on the day of the vaccine. Like that's something that I've actually heard. Is leucovorin, but not those specific vaccines, is leucovorin a valid treatment for speech deficiencies caused by autism? The Food and Drug Administration also announced Monday that it would label leucovorin, a form of vitamin B typically used along with cancer medicines, as a treatment for speech-related deficits associated with autism. Tager Flussberg said that while a promising small-scale study showed language improvement for a group of children who were administered leucovorin, the treatment has at best weak evidence in support of it. She added that researchers need to build on early studies with a large-scale randomized controlled trial, and that they need to know what outcomes can be expected, dosage levels, and which children to observe. We need a study to investigate this right now, far before the FDA should be approving this medication, Tager Flussberg said. They haven't done this for a single other medication in the history of autism. All right. And then, also another interesting thing. I got to grab my phone because I wanted to play this clip from Abortion Every Day, which is Jessica Valenti's Instagram account. She's going to be on GWF soon. We were supposed to record it already, but she had like a personal matter to attend to. But I'm very excited to have her on. But I thought her take on this was really interesting. Let me just grab my phone. I had to charge it. 1 sec. Mike, talk to the crowd.
Wait, is this just on her Instagram page? Because I can just bring that up on the window.
Wait, what? I just said talk to the crowd, and then I was like, oh no. Oh no, are you spreading anti-vaccine propaganda on my show?
No. But if you have a doctor cool enough, you can just say, hey, there's a chance by the time this kid has to go to school, RFK would have done away with all the mandates, and they'll just say, yeah, sure, whatever, we'll put it off as long as you want.
Well, I thought that you were homeschooling so then you wouldn't need any vaccines.
I don't know. I haven't decided yet. My parents are.
You were hell-bent on that. Okay, so I'm sorry, what did your parents say? Did they say something reasonable to talk you out of it?
No, I mean, they're just, they really want the kid in private school, and I'm like, I don't know.
Private school. Are they paying?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Parochial school.
Hell yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see.
All right. It was the hell yeah wasn't for parochial school. It was for them paying for it.
Yeah.
That's a nice treat.
Are you just wanting to pull up this person's Instagram?
Yeah. I just had to see because I didn't know which one to tell you to pull up, but it's not the pinned one. It's the one that says Tylenol while pregnant.
Yeah.
And this should be fine to play her audio, right? Because it's not copyright.
Yeah, no, it's Instagram.
Okay, so I just thought her perspective was interesting, and if you're into women's health issues and you're not following Jessica Valenti, great follow. She literally posts about abortion every day. Extremely interesting follow. Again, I can't wait to speak to her in person.
On pregnancy, because I am going to lose it. There is no way that any reasonable person thinks that this is really about autism or science or protecting pregnancy and protecting children. This is about making sure women suffer, making sure women are in pain. This is about making sure that pregnant women do not get 1 ounce of relief during their pregnancy. Because as so many people have pointed out very astutely, this is Christian fundamentalism, right? Eve sinned, and therefore women must suffer. And if you are pregnant and not suffering, you are offending God. The other thing that cannot get lost in this is that this is about criminalization and opening the door to more arrests of pregnant people. We have already seen women arrested for their pregnancy outcomes, arrested for abortion, arrested for miscarriage, arrested for how they disposed of their miscarriage. And we've seen women arrested for using substances while pregnant. one of the best organizations that's been doing work on this for a really long time, Pregnancy Justice, among other things, defends women who've been accused of substance abuse while pregnant. And they have been warning forever, for years, that we are on a very slippery slope. And we're sliding, we're slipping, we're at the bottom, because if they can arrest you for alleged marijuana use during pregnancy, if they can put you in jail to protect your fetus from alleged marijuana use, which has been done, if they can arrest you for taking a legal prescription that your doctor gave you, which has been done, if they can arrest you and put you in jail for those things, how long do you think it's going to be before they arrest someone for using Tylenol while pregnant after this? How long do you think it's going to be before they arrest someone for not taking prenatal vitamins correctly? Or for lifting something heavy while pregnant? Or for running a marathon while pregnant? We are going down that road. We're at the end of that road. We are there. I'm going to have more in the newsletter about this tonight, but please understand that they have been doing this for a while. This is their first public trial balloon. This is their first dipping their toe in the public waters to see how Americans are going to respond. So we better respond.
I thought that was so interesting. And obviously when you're, Jessica
Let's talk about Tylenol.
Is kind of going from everything from a female perspective. And so, I'm not saying that it's nothing to do with autism, but this was a very, very interesting look at this story that I hadn't seen any other news outlets really talking about. And it makes perfect sense, especially when we were just coming off of all that Charlie Kirk martyr article. And I mean, this, very apparent, not even well hidden at all, move towards Christian nationalism.
A marticle, if you will.
A marticle. Oh, that's very cute, Michael. And it's it's good too, because also me, I actually do know that Eve sins and that's why we hate women or whatever in the for the rest of eternity. I actually did know that, but it's never religious anecdotes are never at the front of my brain. So I love that she pointed it out. And I was like, yes, not even just the women suffering, but the criminalization for sure, the control over the bodies. I was like, wow, that was I just thought that was a really great point, and definitely complimented that NPR article from the autism expert really well. And I just thought that was, I really love everything Jessica presents. Not every single thing though, because I don't follow her blindly, but I just thought that was a standout piece that she did, and I'm excited to talk to her more about that.
Hold up. I mean, you steamrolled over what I was saying. What I thought was the most interesting part of that article we read was
ivermectin?
Lysovorian.
I didn't steamroll past it. I just didn't. I didn't. You were talking about who owns it. Yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to steamroll past it. I think that is, we always want to follow the money, so that makes sense.
So in that article announced as part of the team that is making this comparison, Dr. Oz, who happens to himself hawk Lavoisian or whatever that thing is called. I'm never going to be able to pronounce it right. But he has his own company, kind of Alpha Brain style, where he's selling this stuff.
Oh, okay.
Fast track that thing to FDA approval.
There you go.
He's got the inside track on the autism cure for all these people who are worried.
There you go. One of the main people talking about it sells it. What do you know?
This goes right in line with your Kathy Hochul thing.
Which Kathy Hochul thing? The cell phone pouch. Sorry.
The cell phone pouch.
Yeah.
The
that was on my Instagram. Everybody. That's why he's referencing. That's why I was. It's about how Kathy Hochul, made this whole song and dance about how she's getting cell phones out of the company, and then I kind of did some research, and I was like, why couldn't we just put them in a box for free? Especially in a state when so many children don't have access to the learning tools that they need. Why were you spending tens of thousands on cell phone bags when we could just put them in a free plastic container or something? And sure enough, lobbyists at her door. I was like, there's definitely money involved here.
There was. It was the Yonder Bag company, I believe you said, that gave her a ton of money, right?
Well, it was a lobbyist for I believe the company that makes Yonder. I'd have to go back and fact check myself, but whatever I presented there was great. Well, because I was like, because I looked at the story first, and then I made my own prediction about what I thought was happening. And I said, number one, I think someone is, there's money involved to get some kind of a cell phone pouch company. And number two, my number two thought was, well, the only cell phone pouch company that is widely known is Yonder. So let's look into this a little bit more. Sure enough, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Check this out. Mm-hmm. This is an official promotional material, like photo op taken from the same day she unveiled Frankie Focus.
Yep.
Here is Hochul herself pictured with a handful of Yonder bags. Mm-hmm. So they are, in fact, being used.
Yep.
And
I knew
worth
that.
noting, Frankie Focus is the color of the Yonder bags.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's just, and that's why I like, it's not like not believing what you read is not saying like everything's false and everything's a conspiracy theory. When I say like the truth is in there, I mean more like you're going to have to put a couple sources together to get the full picture of what the truth actually is. And so I think a lot of times we're being served pieces of the truth and we need to complement them with other pieces of research. Or if you read an article, and you have questions about things that the journalist doesn't present, do a little extra, if something pops out, like for Mike in this story, what popped out to him is, who makes this medicine that they're pitching for autism? And then he did that further step and go, what do you know? It leads back to Dr. Oz. That's the exact kind of like skill that I use in my own life. And that I am trying to encourage other people to use. Because again, like, if we want to talk about like, fighting authoritarianism, whether you're on the right or the left, it doesn't matter what side you're on. If you just want to, I would think that no one really wants, if they are asked on paper, do you want to be ruled by a dictator? I would hope that most people would say no, even if it is your beloved Donald Trump. I would hope most Americans are not interested in that. And one of the most powerful tools we have as citizens is to keep ourselves informed because, they love keeping us stupid, they love keeping us fighting, and they love keeping us poor. So the most rebellious thing you can do is make money, obtain knowledge, and use that money for good, hopefully. Obtain knowledge and not spend too much time fighting with other people who are your equals, who are in your position. We should all be fighting these people who are fucking us over at the top together. That's what we should be doing. It really is so simple when you look at it, but seemingly we cannot agree to do that. And if you want something that was reported this week is that during, I don't know if they were only assessing it from Trump's one term or if they were including his two terms, but basically during Trump's time in politics, his family has doubled their worth. It has their worth, and this is like many Trumps, and not just the super nuclear family ones. By $10 billion, their family net worth has increased. $10 billion with a B. I was trying to tell my hairstylist about this today, and I was like, was it 10 million or 10 billion? Because I talked myself out of it being 10 million because I was like, oh, it can't be that. No, it was 10 billion. I was right, and I shouldn't have questioned myself. 10 billion with a fucking B.
Well, it is interesting. Like, one of my bigger advocacies for Trump for the second presidency was, shockingly, he lost money in his first presidency. It feels like
personally or his entire family. We're talking
just
about
him personally.
Right.
But I mean, the vast majority of the money he's made has been in this second term. I mean, in his crypto scams alone, billions of dollars have been, moved. So it's like, it's not even close to how much he is fully transparently milking the American public for every dollar he can right now.
And you don't like that.
No, this is the Donald Trump that I thought we were getting in 2016.
And then you decided that he wasn't, and then you voted for him.
Yeah, but it didn't count.
It did, but
well, I mean, here's the thing.
And I know it didn't count vote-wise, but I'm talking about it counted in intention.
Sure. Sure, but at the end of the day, I the other choice was not good by any stretch of the imagination.
We know how you feel, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it was an
I don't
A-B
agree.
choice. And the Trump that I thought I was going to get in 2016, largely, I did not get. Now, that might be because the Democrats actually had teeth back then and fought him tooth and nail and stopped a lot of his measures, like, right away, and kept him tied up in that, Russiagate nonsense for 3+ years. So it's like, now that the shackles are off, I'm not really liking the results we're seeing. But I mean, I got head faked on that first 4 years because it was hardly as bad as we were told it was by liberals.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but you always know that Trump term 2 is going to be the wild one.
Yeah, I mean,
You always know.
Again, you present me with anything resembling a reasonable candidate on the other side, and we can talk.
Listen, you're not alone in that thought, so I'm not going to fight you on that. All right. And just a wrap, this is kind of like a lot of like legal stuff, but I think the important things that I think you should know just to round out at the end of the show, we're coming to an end. Trump, again, tells us who he is. He loves going after his enemies. The Department of Justice is going to indict James Comey. That was, on Trump's list of enemies. We knew that was coming. As a reminder, James Comey is the former FBI director. We knew this was happening. He's Trump has very methodically been going through his list of enemies and attacking them, and even made time at the Charlie Kirk memorial to talk about how he loves revenge on his enemies. So again, no surprise. And I know you're thinking like, well, what are the charges? That was my thing. I'm like, what exactly are they bringing him up on? And democracydocket.com, because again, this was breaking news from tonight. It says It says the charges are expected despite a lengthy investigation failing to find evidence of a crime. The charges would reportedly come from the Eastern District of Virginia. Last week, Trump forced the U.S. attorney for that district, Eric Siebert, out of his post and replaced him with Lindsay Halligan, one of Trump's former personal attorneys who has no prosecutorial experience. Again, anywhere he can replace someone with one of his friends, he does that. Same measures over and over again. Trump ordered Attorney General Pam Bondi over the weekend to move more aggressively in prosecuting his political opponents, including Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. We saw that leaked message from Truth Social that was quickly deleted, that a lot of people are saying is kind of like Trump's version of like the Watergate leakage. And Trump has been vowing to get revenge on Comey openly. For the way he handled the investigation into the Russian meddling into the 2016 U.S. presidential election. So no one's really exactly sure what these charges are going to be, but, that's one thing that's happening. Going down Trump's list of enemies, is it Ryan Routh who attempted to kill him, or is Ryan Ruth? How do you say that? Do you know? I want to say Routh.
I have no idea.
This has completely flown under the radar, but New York Times did report yesterday that Ryan Routh was convicted of the Trump assassination attempt. It only took them 2 hours to decide on that. And he tried to stab himself with a pen after being convicted in the courtroom. But the thing is, this guy, based on this description in the New York Post, seems to... I don't know how they didn't just say this guy is crazy. He seems extremely mentally unstable, and not just because he shot, Donald Trump. And he just seems someone who, I can't. This guy seems like he should have been able to say, "I'm mentally unstable and I can't stand trial." And he also
that's not how patsies work.
I understand. That's kind of what I'm getting at. And then he also represented himself. So it really seems like they just found some mentally ill guy and were like, oh, no one's going to miss him. It's really quite a sad story. And again, just not getting, I saw no one talking about this. Ryan Routh, the madman who holed up in a sniper's nest with an assault rifle at one of President Trump's golf courses, tried to stab himself with a pen in a Florida courtroom Tuesday after he was convicted of attempting to assassinate the then GOP nominee. A dramatic scene unfolded as jurors were leaving the courtroom when Routh took a pen and started trying to jab himself in the neck. So this was not the ear one. This is the other one then, because this is the golf course, right? Or was that the one? How many attempts were there?
There was two.
Right?
I thought Routh though was the golf.
That's what I was initially thinking, but then now it's making it again, because I read this article, but now I'm like
Ryan Wesley Routh is the golf course guy.
Yeah, because I'm like when they said golf, upon second reading, I'm like, this is the other guy, not the ear guy. So this is not the patsy. This is actually just maybe a mentally unstable person.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
because the other guy was younger, wasn't it?
Yeah,
he was like way younger. He was like 22, and he's dead, isn't he?
No, I think he was just on trial.
Wait. I'm sorry. There's so much gun violence. It's really hard.
Butler, PA shooter.
Yeah.
Thomas Matthew Crooks. Whoa, he is dead.
Yeah, he is. He died.
Oh.
Yeah, because I was like, that guy was 22 and died. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because when I saw a Trump
And
assassin,
that makes more sense if you're setting someone up, because you got to kill them so they can never talk. And maybe they told him initially that he wouldn't end up dead, but now he is.
Right.
You know? Okay, so this makes sense. Okay. Again. Let's just see. Yeah, because I was like, no, that guy's dead and was much younger. This is crazy too, though. And again, this person should have been able to say, you know, I can't stand trial.
Yeah, no, that seems like a mentally unwell person.
No, for sure. So courtroom marshals sprang into action and dragged him out of the room as his daughter, Sarah Routh, screamed at her father, "Dad, I love you. Don't do anything. I'll get you out. He didn't hurt anybody," the daughter yelled. So, like, you know, that made me really sad. A few minutes later...
God, daughters rule.
We do. A few minutes later, Routh was brought back into the courtroom with shackles on. He wasn't wearing the jacket and tie from earlier, and his white shirt didn't show signs of blood. The judges set his sentencing date for December 18th, when he will face up to life in prison. The jurors took about 2 hours to find Routh, 59, guilty of 5 federal charges of attempted assassination, assault on a federal officer, and gun crimes following a 2-week trial in Fort Pierce, Florida. After the verdict was read out, Routh took a pen and stabbed himself in the neck. The extent of his injuries was not immediately clear. Trump, in a post on Truth Social later Tuesday, thanked the judge and the jury for their professionalism and patience, and thanked the Secret Service agent who stopped Routh for his instinct and foresight. Quote, "This was an evil man with an evil intention, and they caught him," the Post read, "a very big moment for justice in America." Routh, a construction worker with no formal legal training, represented himself, putting on an amateur and bizarre defense in which he suggested the case should be settled by a golf match to the death. I'm not making this up. Michael, I knew you would love that, Michael. I saved that for you. This article, like, it is funny, but it's also really sad, and it's really crazy that he was allowed to represent yourself. I know it's American, he should, but again, sometimes I think when it comes to mental health, we have too much autonomy, and also, like, if his daughter is around, why didn't she say, like, "No, Dad, don't do this"? I mean, maybe she did. We don't know. He suggested that he and Trump face off on the green, and if Trump won, the president could execute Routh. If Routh won, he proposed he would become president. Fair. Such wild stunts led the judge to repeatedly slam Routh for violating court rules. It's like, this guy is unwell. Prosecutors said Routh plotted for weeks before staking out the Trump International West Palm Beach golf course on September 15th, 2024, as the candidate was golfing. Routh was spotted by a Secret Service agent as he was camped out in a sniper's nest on the edge of the course with an SKS rifle poking through the fence. The agent opened fire, prompting Routh to flee before he ever fired a shot. The assassination attempt was the second in a span of 9 weeks. Michael Thomas Crooks, 20, fired multiple rounds at Trump when he was campaigning in Butler, PA. Here it is. One bullet grazed Trump's ear. Crooks was killed by a Secret Service counter sniper. Judge Aileen Cannon Trump appointee, stopped Ralph's opening statements after less than 10 minutes, following his rambling comments that he touched on topics including prehistoric human history and world leaders, including Nazi dictator Adolf Hitler, Russian President Vladimir Putin, and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. This case means absolutely nothing, Ralph told jurors at one point. A life has been lived to the fullest.
Hell yeah, it has, dude. If you're challenging the president to a winner-take-all golf match.
Yeah. He also tried to ask prospective panelists during jury selection about their stance on the U.S. taking over Greenland, pro-Palestinian student activism, and how they would react if a turtle crossed the road while they were driving. I mean, I think that's a good sign of empathy. Maybe there's a method to this man's madness, but Cannon blocked the questions, calling them irrelevant. Routh, who in recent years lived in Hawaii, fired his lawyers earlier this summer and was permitted by Cannon to take over his defense. I think that's pretty irresponsible, honestly. But the judge warned Routh that his prior attorneys would do a better job than he would, and that he would only be allowed to consult with standby lawyers for technical legal questions and not for defense strategy. Since taking over, Routh has filed a slew of bonkers legal papers, including a witness list in which he sought to call the commander-in-chief himself, activist Mahmoud Khalil, and a Secret Service agent he claimed asked him to, quote, spank, slap ass. Most of Routh's 24 proposed witnesses were barred by Cannon from testifying at trial on the grounds they couldn't offer relevant testimony. At trial,
Sounds like an unfair trial.
But it is, but not for the reasons that you're pointing at. At trial, prosecutors called 38 law enforcement witnesses, and also to the jury. If I'm on this jury, I'm saying I can't vote against this guy, because this shouldn't have happened. At trial, prosecutors called 38 law enforcement witnesses, including the Secret Service agent who foiled his plot, while Routh called just 3, 2 character witnesses and 1 gun expert. Routh, who pleaded not guilty to all charges, chose not to testify. In earlier court filings, Routh asked why his case wasn't death penalty eligible. He wants it, and asked to be traded in a prisoner exchange with Hamas, Iran, China, and Russia. He also challenged Trump to a game of golf to the death, proposing that if he lost, he should be executed, and if Trump lost, Ralph should get his job, which they said earlier in the article, but it was so poignant that they decided to bring it up again, and I really can't fight them on that. And then the last, Donald Trump enemy of the week is that the Supreme Court has allowed Donald Trump to fire the FTC commissioner. The justices, this is from New York Times, the justices said they will now consider whether to overrule a landmark Supreme Court precedent that has limited the president's ability to fire top officials at the agency. This is the Federal Trade Commission. This is by Abby Van Sickle and Ann E. Marimau. The Supreme Court on Monday allowed President Trump to fire a leader of the Federal Trade Commission, setting up a court battle over a 90-year-old limit on executive power over independent agencies. Again, anything he can pull apart or put his own people in, he's doing. Any enemy he can take down, he's doing it. In an emergency order, a divided court announced that it would allow President Trump for now to fire Rebecca Kelly Slaughter, an FTC commissioner, and that it would hear argument in the case in December, a signal that a majority of the court is ready to revisit a landmark precedent limiting presidential authority. Mr. Trump had fired Ms. Slaughter and Alvaro Bedoya, 2 Democratic members of the FTC, in March. The federal agency, which enforces consumer protection and antitrust laws, typically has 5 commissioners, 3 from the president's party and 2 from the opposing party. After their firing, the 2 commissioners had said they planned to challenge their removal in court, relying on a 1935 landmark Supreme Court case, Humphrey's Executor versus the United States. That also involved the firing of, you guessed it, an FTC commissioner. In its brief order Monday, the court said it would consider in December the broader question of whether to overturn the precedent that has prevented presidents from removing independent regulators without cause and solely over policy disagreements. The decision by the court's conservative majority to allow Mr. Trump to remove Ms. Slaughter drew a dissent from the 3 liberal justices. Justice Elena Kagan said her conservative colleagues had essentially allowed the president to take charge of agencies Congress intended to protect from partisanship. She wrote that the court's majority, order by order, has handed full control of all those agencies to the president. The justice continued, he may now remove, so says the majority, though Congress said differently, any member he wishes for any reason or no reason at all. Bing, bing, bing. And he may thereby extinguish the agency's bipartisanship and independence.
Ew, it stinks.
Justice Kagan pointed out that in the 1935 case, the Supreme Court had rejected a claim of presidential prerogative identical to the one made in this case. She added that although a majority of justices may be raring to overturn that precedent, for now, it remains in effect. She also laid out a broader criticism of the court's emergency action in this case and others, writing that the court's emergency docket should never be used, as it has been this year, to permit what our own precedent bars. She added that it should not be used, as it also has been, to transfer government authority from Congress to the president, and thus to reshape the nation's separation of powers. Unlike merits cases, which receive full briefing and often months of consideration, emergency applications are often decided on a truncated schedule without oral argument. Justice Kagan was joined by Justices Sonia Sotomayor and Ketanji Brown Jackson. In a series of cases, the Supreme Court has signaled a willingness to potentially overrule the precedent and at some point declare that laws shielding agency heads from presidential ouster are unconstitutional. Still, the justices have not formally done so. The justices are separately considering the Trump administration's request to remove Lisa Cook as a Federal Reserve governor. The Supreme Court has yet to act, but has suggested that the central bank may be insulated from presidential meddling under the law. Both commissioners in the FTC matter contested their firings, but Mr. Bedoya ultimately resigned in June, saying that he could not continue without income as the case proceeded through the courts. Ms. Slaughter pushed ahead with a lawsuit challenging her firing, arguing that she was terminated without reason and should be allowed to resume her role at the agency. In July, a U.S. District Court judge ruled for Ms. Slaughter, finding that her firing by Mr. Trump was illegal and that she was a rightful member of the agency. The judge, Lauren L. Ali Khan of the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia, cited the longstanding Supreme Court precedent, finding that because those protections remain constitutional, as they have for almost a century, Ms. Slaughter's purported removal was unlawful and without legal effect. The Trump administration then filed for a stay of that decision with the appeals court. In early September, a divided appeals court panel reinstated Ms. Slaughter. In their ruling, judges from the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia wrote that the president had fired the commissioner without cause. A commissioner cannot be fired without the required grounds of inefficiency, neglect of duty, or how do you say that word? Malfeasance in office? It's
Malfeasance?
Malfeasance. I was like, I know what it means, but I can't say it. Shortly after, the Trump administration asked the Supreme Court to weigh in and allow the president to fire Ms. Slaughter. In court filings, Solicitor General D. John Sauer argued that the justices should find that the president had the authority to fire Ms. Slaughter, claiming that lower courts had applied an overly expansive view of Supreme Court precedent. Mr. Sauer maintained that the FTC had changed in recent decades, amassing considerable executive power in the intervening 90 years. Mr. Sauer argued that the FTC case was indistinguishable from other firings of federal agency leaders that the justices have allowed to go forward. including the court's decision in late July to allow the firing of 3 Democratic members of the Consumer Product Safety Commission, a 5-member group that monitors the safety of items like toys, cribs, and electronics. On September 8th, Chief Justice John G. Roberts Jr. issued an order temporarily allowing Mr. Trump's firing of Ms. Slaughter while the court considered the administration's emergency application. In response to the Trump administration's court filings, lawyers for Ms. Slaughter again pointed to Supreme Court precedent, arguing that her firing was illegal. 90 years ago, this court was tasked with deciding whether the president may fire a commissioner of the Federal Trade Commission without cause. They wrote in a brief to the justices. The court ruled that he may not. A decision to allow the president to fire Ms. Slaughter, her lawyers argued, would mean the agency Congress created would be severely wounded and radically transformed. I mean, well, I'm ending the show now, but thank you. I asked Mike like 3 hours ago to turn on the air, and was my brow sweating? What made you do it now? It's really okay. You don't even need to bother with it. I'm totally good. Guy, you gotta get in there so you can promote all your stuff. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Again, just an absolute wild week of news. And if you find it overwhelming, just take a little breather. Meditate, watch some ASMR.
Take a deep breath.
But again, I applaud you for being here, for taking an interest in democracy and in your country, and hopefully in your state, in your city, in your town, in your municipality, whatever it may be. It is extremely important. And doing some fun stuff. If you are in Tokyo, Japan, if you find yourself, there's an English-speaking comedy club now. It's called Tokyo Comedy Bar. It's in the Shibuya area, I believe. And on Saturday, October 4th, I am going to be performing at Tokyo Comedy Bar. Very excited about that. And then Los Angeles, California, on Wednesday, October 22nd, I am doing Gash at the Comedy Store in the Belly Room. Very few tickets left for that. So again, if you want to come, you got to get those tickets now because it's not even October and there are only a handful left. And I am not announcing the lineup, but all my number one asks said yes. And I'm so excited for this lineup. Not about fame, just about they are people with big followings, but internet big followings. But I think they're just, it's just going to be a really, really good show. I'm really excited about it. And of course, follow me on social media at Philanthropy Gal. You can follow Without a Country on Instagram at Without a Country Podcast. Please make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, whether or not that's how you take in the show. And if you want to join the Patreon, it's patreon.com/Without a Country. And every week you get an additional news story that comes out on Thursdays, with new information, a new story, a new conversation that is not existing on the regular show that you have access to here. Thank you so much. If you want to email me anything, it's withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com, specifically always looking for domestic violence type stories, really interesting municipal stories, but anything else that you feel is pertinent, you can send. Again, I have a packed inbox right now, so apologies. I do see everything. Everything cannot, unfortunately, be included on the show, though. And Mike, where can people find you? What can you do them with this week?
At the M Harrington on all.
Oh, it's not them Harrington anymore?
No, yeah, sure. Them Harrington on all social media platforms. I have Anxiety Attack coming up at New York Comedy Club on Thursday, October 16th, and possibly the biggest armored event in American history.
Whoa!
Taking place on November the 20th. It's going to be Z Series 4. We're flying in guys from, Poland. Guys are coming in from Seattle, Houston, Texas. Literally all of the best armored fighters in the world at their weight class fighting in Melrose Ballroom, Long Island City. I know it's 2 months away almost, but get tickets now because this one will sell out.
And it's really fun. Again, if you're looking for something kind of a more interesting night out, a non-traditional night out, I highly recommend it. I had a great time when I went, and I'm not, I'm not paid to say this. What is this?
a monkey doing you-know-what with a football.
It was really fun. I really highly recommend it. That's our show for today, guys. Thank you so much for staying with me for all this time, for being interested. And remember, the truth is in there. I'm Corinne Fisher. This is Without a Country. We'll talk to you next Wednesday. Bye.